and welcome to Silent Movie Marathon 3. Yes, another Silent Movie Marathon. The last one was pretty interesting, wasn't it? A 9-hour-long video. Unbelievable. 42 films, 2 weeks, and a 9+ hour video, which I did then break into a 13-episode miniseries as well. So if you haven't seen that and you like me talking about silent films, then there's a whole shit ton of it from last September. Although it took me a few months to get the video out. It was released in December of 2015. It is now September 2016. It is Silent Movie Marathon time again. I first started this back in 2014. Yes, 2014. With a 2-hour video, no rules, just watched a bunch of silent films. 2015, a bit more strict. I decided that I was only going to watch silent films on Blu-ray and only silent films that I'd seen for the first time. This year, the rules have changed slightly. Well, not really. There are no rules, I suppose, but I am going to be watching strictly silent films on Blu-ray. I'm sure a couple of them might be standard definition because they're special features on other Blu-rays, but mostly we're looking at actual high-definition silent films on Blu-ray for all of this Silent Movie Marathon, and most of them are first-time watches. Now, I want to kind of let you know what's going to happen with the next Silent Movie Marathon as well, because it kind of ties in with this one, and you'll see why once I've explained it. Next September, and I feel like now September is the Silent Movie Marathon month for me. I did the original in July. Last year I did it in September, and I really like doing it in September for some reason. The summer was fading, winter's around the corner, especially here in Norway. You can kind of really tell that winter is coming, and so I like doing it at that time of year last year. So this year, September again, I'm doing it. It's the 5th September today. And I want to keep it as a September thing. You know, it's a nice space between the 24-hour movie marathon in March, April time. I like the gap, you know, it gives me time because these videos are big and stuff. But this year I'm going to be doing 2 silent movie marathons. Yes, 2. Next year, next September, things are going to be up in the air. I don't know where I'm going to be next September. I might be still here. I might not be still here. I might be about to move out from here. Either way, things will be crazy next September, and I probably won't have you know, any money to spare on silent films on Blu-ray. So I just don't think it'd be a wise idea to plan to do this next year. But I still want to do another one for next year. So I'm going to do 3 and 4. Back to back, as if I'm Peter Jackson making the Lord of the Rings. Let's hope it's not as long as Lord of the Rings. And also, I have so many films yet again. I have, I think, maybe a little bit more than I had last year. So, and I'm looking at 2 humongous stacks right now, and as last year, I'm so happy, I'm so excited. I've been saving these films up for the past year. I've been like buying some of these since, you know, since the last Silent Movie Marathon to feature in next year's one, and throughout the summer, my birthday, Christmas, I'm getting presents at Silent Films on Blu-ray, and it's all been building up to this month where I'm going to be doing Silent Movie Marathon 3 and 4. Really excited about it. I've kind of charted out everything. I've plotted what I'm going to watch in each marathon. I kind of thought maybe I should do Silent Movie Marathon 3 now, release the video in maybe next month or something like that, and then Silent Movie Marathon 4, I'll wait until next year to release the video. But then I just think, I don't know, maybe I'll see what the reaction is to Silent Movie Marathon 3. If people want to see more immediately, then perhaps I'll post the 4th one in a few more months down the line. Maybe at Christmas time again, like I did with the last one. But I'm going to tell you what the plan is for this. So this one, Silent Movie Marathon 3, is going to be called an Odyssey of Intertitles, which is one of the subtitles I almost used for last year's video. But it is going to be an Odyssey of Intertitles. We've got all sorts of films from all over the world. It's a real international flavour to things. We've got films from Germany, films from the UK, films from America, of course, but also films from Sweden, Norway. So I've really tried to get a nice mix of everything for both of these marathons, and to kind of space everything out and to not have kind of a lot of the same thing in each one. And Silent Movie Marathon 4 is the one I'm really looking forward to, and it's going to be called A History of Silence, because I'm going to take you from the very beginning of film itself until almost the end, or not the end, but you know, the present day. We're going to go from the 1890s all the way up to the 2010s. There will be a lot of stuff from the 2010s, but there'll be a couple of films, and we will start at the very beginning of silent cinema, the very beginning of film, the very beginning of the moving image, and I'll take you on a guide through, you know, the silent era, the many different parts of it, the comedy, the drama, the beginning of sound, and later silent films after the silent era was ended. So I'm really looking forward to A History of Silence. I need to wait another month to get one more Blu-ray for that as well. That's another reason for it. But there's still quite a lot of films I'm really excited for this one, Silent Movie Marathon 3. Admittedly, there are ones I'm not as looking forward to, but maybe that's where surprises will come, and I'll find some films that, you know, kind of blow me away more than I thought they might originally, because there's quite a couple here that I'm really excited to see, and you'll see all about that in the rest of this video. So I hope you enjoy the rest of proceedings, and I've explained that well enough. I'm just, yeah, I'm really excited to dig into these, because I'm such a big fan of these silent films that it's definitely something that, you know, I look forward to every year, and I love kind of making this kind of this thing where every year I can look forward to it, where I can sit down and just dedicate myself to watching loads of new silent films I haven't seen before. I'm going to kick things off the way we ended it last time. We ended last year's Silent Movie Marathon 2 with a Buster Keaton film, College. So we're going to begin it with another Buster Keaton film, one of his last silent feature films I haven't seen before. Connie's going to join me for that one, and we're probably going to have dinner. We'll see what happens, but she won't be joining me for hardly any of the films in this. Maybe a couple of the short films that are going to be cropping up throughout this marathon, but for the most part she won't be, but she will be joining me for this first Buster Keaton film, which I'm really excited to check out, because I've seen most of his silent films, the feature ones anyway, and in fact no, I've seen most of his shorts, and so yeah, I've seen almost all of his silent stuff, but this is one of the features I haven't seen, and I'm really looking forward to it. It just came in a couple of weeks ago, so it's going to be a great way to kick it off. I'm a big Buster Keaton fan, so that's awesome, and it goes back all the way to, you know, my real kind of the beginnings, the genesis of my love of silent film, which was the 24-hour movie marathon 3, I think, when me and Connie watched a couple of Buster Keaton films. And you know, I'll always say that Metropolis, Fritz Lang's epic, was the film that opened my eyes to silent films, but Buster Keaton was who pushed me through the door itself. You know, like he's the guy who really got me to where I am today. And so I have the new short films collection. I can show it to you now, even because it's on top of the stack and I won't be ruining anything. So I will be delving into this and watching some of these shorts, probably throughout both the Silent Movie Marathon 3 and 4, kind of throwing them in there to kind of just be nice kind of break films, I guess. But there's not as many kind of epics as there was last year. There's one epic in Silent Movie Marathon 4 that is going to be huge, like the longest silent film ever, that I've ever seen. But for this one, Silent Movie Marathon 3, there's not many epics. You know, most of them are fairly short. I worked out the timings. I could probably do this marathon in a 24-hour period, but I'm not going to. Last year, of course, I did so many films. It took me 2 weeks, taking the weekends off, going Monday to Friday and just watching. This time I'm starting on a Monday, and I hope to be done by Friday, but I mean, you know, if I really dedicate myself to it, I could probably do it in a few days. I'd like to do that and then refresh, and then maybe in a month and a half, I can crack on with the 4th marathon. So that's about it. Nothing more to go into. That's the introduction down. Okay, take a breath. I really need to just take a breather there, because I'm getting too amped up. I need to get my excitement levels down a little bit, tone it down a notch, and just get ready to sit down, chill out, and watch some amazing silent films. Hopefully. It'll be a real dud if this video turned out to be me just watching films and me disappointed by every single one of them. We have about 10 feature films for this marathon, maybe 11, and a bunch of shorts, so let's get into it. Alright. We are about to start Silent Movie Marathon 3 with Buster Keaton's Battling Butler. Battling Butler. Bit of a mouthful. Not really, it's just the pronunciation. Because if you really pronounce it, it's Battling Butler. But my kind of way of saying it would be Battling Butler, which is a bit of a cluster fuck of words. It doesn't even sound like the English language. Battling Butler. Anyway, it is Battling Butler, which is this is a 2-pack Kino Blu-ray. I've seen Go West, love Go West, one of the kind of underappreciated or underrated Buster Keaton films. I think it's a real great film, one of his shorter ones. But Battling Butler, is one I haven't seen, so we're going to check that out. Connie's with me. She's not going to be on camera for this because I'm sick of her being in all my videos. I mean, we've been doing so many videos together recently, so I just want to take a break of, you know, this is my channel and I want to occupy the frame with my face, so.
Yeah, and your fans are like sick of my face anyways.
They might be. They may very well might be. Yeah. But also she just, you know, worked out and showered and doesn't have makeup on, so, you know, that might be the real reason. We're on a kind of a health kick, kind of, for the past 2 months now. In fact, tomorrow will mark 2 months since I've started it. Obviously this is about silent films, I'm not going to go deep into that, but it's funny because we both have a glass in front of us. Connie has a glass of stuff that looks like, I'm not going to say what it looks like. You might be able to guess what it looks like. Yeah, it's a smoothie.
It's a green smoothie.
It
looks like a green smoothie.
It looks like a glass of...
Don't say the word.
I'm not going to say the word. Whereas I have a glass As per tradition of cola with some ice cubes. It is sugar-free cola. Still poisonous, but you know. So I'm not going to gain weight, but it's not good for me. But still,
Mine
I felt like
better than yours.
I felt like I needed to uphold tradition a little bit and get some Coke. So let's check out the film. Connie likes Buster Keaton, so she'll give her off-camera thoughts afterwards, if she has any, that is. And we're going to watch the film now and kick this whole thing off with the man himself, Buster Keaton, the great Stoneface himself. Battling Butler. I guess it must be his kind of his Rocky film or something. It says based on a popular stage musical, Battling Butler stars Buster Keaton as a pampered socialite who pretends to be a famed prize fighter in order to impress his girlfriend's bullying brothers. So he's got a girlfriend with brothers who are bullies, and he wants to impress them by pretending he's a boxer when really he is a pampered socialite. Sounds like fun. I almost feel like just dragging this out even longer to annoy Connie even more, but I'm not going to, because she just rolled her eyes so much. I'm thankful that her pupils are still, you know, in front of her and not lost in the back of her head.
Thankful my face isn't on camera. Play.
If her looks could kill, I'd be dead long ago. Illegal! Oh wow. The old MGM. Lion looks sleepy. Directed by Buster Keaton, which means it's going to be great. Guys, I think this might be a faulty edition or something. I don't know what it is with this Blu-ray. There's no... I can't hear what they're saying. Oh, there we go. Must just be for the introduction. A mouse moving there? What are they saying? We have to read the entire... Shh!
I can't read!
Shh! We've got to read the whole film. You got to be fucking kidding me. It looked like he said more than that. Alright, we're half an hour into the film. We're both quite hungry now, so we're going to have dinner and take a little break. Connie's cooking some chicken and rice, which I cannot wait for. My stomach is rumbling. Loving the film so far. I didn't know what to expect from it. I hadn't heard that it was, you know, one of his greats particularly, but it's a great first half hour. Has really set up the story well. If the rest of the film's as good as the first half hour, then it should be one of my favorites. I think I really enjoyed the setup. It had some good jokes, good little story going on there. And did you enjoy? You know.
Oh, I fucking hate it. I'm kidding.
Hate it, you know. No, I mean.
No, I really enjoy it. I actually laugh out loud sometimes, and I don't usually do that.
Yeah, we've been laughing a lot. It's just really funny gags, both visually on the screen, but also like some of the intertitles. Like, you know, like when he's dating he's dating the girl, and she thinks he's this boxer champion, but he doesn't know that she thinks this, and so she says, when you fighting next, and he stops to think, and then he says, when I'm drafted. Which is a great little gag.
And then she says, no, I mean, who are you fighting?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. I really like the story of him being this kind of, again, as it says on the back of the thing, a pampered socialite who's got no real world skills. He goes out camping, but you know, he goes out camping in a very rich way. His tent is lavish. He's got all like a bearskin rug and everything. He's got a butler doing everything for him, and he meets this mountain girl and kind of falls in love with her. Great little scene where they're having dinner and both their elbows are on the table, and the table keeps sinking down into the ground until at the end it's like right in the ground, and it's you know, it's night and they're still chatting away and stuff, and so many great little bits. Yeah, really enjoying it so far. Dinner next, and then we'll finish the film. Okay, here's dinner: chicken, rice, and I don't know what it's just chicken sauce, right? I don't know what the sauce is, but it works great with it. Cannot wait to start eating. One thing I wanted to mention before we do is that obviously, you know, seeing these films in high definition is great, as I mentioned earlier, but even Connie said how good this film looks. Now,
even Connie said.
No, I'm just saying, like, because these Kino Blu-rays, a lot of them, they're not in like amazing quality. Well, they're in amazing quality because they're high definition, they're from film print sources, but they don't clean up the prints that much, you know, so there's a lot of scratches, a lot of the kind of wear and tear and damage that you would expect from like a, you know, 90-year-old film. There have been recent 4K remasters of most of his films where like a lot of the damage has been removed and things like that. But I kind of like the damage. It kind of goes with it a little bit, and Connie said it has a charm to it, right? The damage.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, and I agree as well. So yeah, I mean, hopefully those 4K remasters will get Blu-ray releases at some point. But I do like the charm of seeing all the damage and stuff. For some weird reason, it just has a weathered, lived-in feel to it. And yeah, as Connie pointed out, like just some of the close-ups, you just see so much detail. It's crazy. Anyway, on with the film. On with the dinner, going into our bellies and filling us up, because my stomach was grumbling so much earlier. Connie said it sounded like thunder.
Yeah.
So
like thunder away in the distance.
Yeah, distant thunder. So food, on with the movie. Alright, we're done with Battling Butler. There you go. I really enjoyed it. Connie, do you want to give some of your off-camera thoughts about the film, just very briefly? And speak up a bit, because you're quite far away from the camera.
Oh, it was great. I thought it was great. I loved it. I didn't think that...
You loved it, really?
Well, yeah. I didn't think it would be as entertaining as it was.
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty long, too, to be a...
Yeah. Speaking of length, just to cut you off, it does say on the back that it's 85 minutes. I thought that's quite long for a Buster Keaton film, but it was actually only 76 minutes, so they got that wrong on the back. I thought it might be to do with the difference in timing with like PAL and stuff, you know, America, the UK, but the other one on here, Go West, is 68 minutes on the back and 68 minutes on the disc, so they just made a mistake on the back of the cover. Anything else?
You can just talk and I'll just say something.
You'll just agree with what I say? Okay.
Well, I really liked it.
Okay.
I don't even know what else to say. Like, it had funny parts, it was...
I think the story was really good. It was
Yes.
built up well.
Built up well.
Like you're wondering, how is this going to end? Like, how is he going to get out of this situation, you know?
Usually he kind of jumps into the story after like 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
This one took a while, and that was cool.
It did take a while to build up. As I said, I kind of went through the plot really, but he plays a character called Alfred Butler, and he's a pampered socialite, as it says on the back. I've already said that 3 times now, but he's very entitled. You know, he doesn't really do anything for himself. He has a butler, and actually his butler is kind of like, he instigates everything. You could almost call this film Meddling Butler, about his actual butler in the film, because Buster Keaton's butler in the film is the one who invents this whole lie that Buster's character Alfred Butler is actually the famous boxer who shares the same name, Alfred Battling Butler. So to win over the favour of Buster Keaton's girlfriend's father and brother, Buster Keaton's butler says that it sounds very complicated, but it plays out very well on screen. And so basically all you need to know is that Buster Keaton's character, Alfred Butler, he doesn't come up with the lie that he's the boxer. His own butler comes up with that, and so he kind of ends up stuck with it. And his girlfriend's like, "Oh, you're a boxer," and you know her father and brother are really enamored with it, like, "Oh yeah, you're the boxer," and all that. You gotta beat the guy. We're gonna put money on you and all that kind of stuff. And so he gets taken along this ride throughout the film where he keeps having to keep up with the lie, and so he keeps his wife happy, basically. And then it all leads to him actually being put into a fight at the end of the film, and I just loved how it built up to the fight at the end, what was going to happen, and the actual fight at the end of the film plays out a lot differently than you'd expect.
Oh, yeah.
And it was really, like, funnily enough, you know Martin Scorsese's film Raging Bull? Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
With Robert De Niro, famous boxing movie. A lot of people call it the greatest boxing movie ever made. Scorsese was actually inspired by this film with the final fight where Buster really goes for it with the guy he's fighting. And so Scorsese actually said that was one of his inspirations and stuff, and he actually really liked that scene, so that's really cool.
It was unexpected.
It was unexpected the way it played out, yeah. So yeah, not one of Buster Keaton's best, I wouldn't say. It's not up there with like The General or Steamboat Bill Jr. or Sherlock Jr., but I think it might be in my top 5 favourites actually. I really enjoyed it. I wasn't expecting to, and yeah, I'd call it more of a favourite than one of his best, but I just really enjoyed from start to finish everything about it. It had laugh out loud funny moments, a good story, and a really good ending. I thought I really loved the ending, and even like his own butler I thought was great in it.
Yeah.
He just had a lot of funny facial expressions about overdoing it and things like that. The trainer in the film was really funny, so lots of good little side characters and stuff. And this actually came out in 1926, which was the same year The General came out, which is, you know, his masterpiece. Which is really interesting that he released this film in 1926 and The General in 1926. The General, which again is like one of the greatest films of all time, that film flopped. It absolutely tanked. Whereas Battling Butler was reviewed poorly, but made a load of money and was a hit. So it's weird how sometimes, you know, critical acclaim or, you know, critical, you know, thumbs down, how much a film makes really doesn't, you know, match up sometimes. And I think that's kind of true today as well. I mean, there's kind of a grey area there, but I thought that's quite interesting to know that the Battling Butlers did very well, The General didn't. It's nowhere near as good as The General, but I'm just saying, that was interesting. And also, again, as I read out earlier, it says, Keaton plays a pampered socialite who pretends to be a famed prize fighter in order to impress his girlfriend's bullying brothers. That's untrue. It's his girlfriend's bullying father and brother. So there's 2 mistakes on the back of this already, which is a shame. But the Blu-ray was cool. There's some cool special features, you know, some like production stills and things like that. And yeah, Battling Butler, really, really enjoyed it. I don't know if last year when I did Silent Movie Marathon 2, if I'd started with my kind of new thing now, where I'm not really rating films anymore. Because I feel I just get bogged down in people focusing too much on the rating of what, and I guess I kind of know in my head what I'd rate it, but I'm just saying it's really good. It wasn't amazing, but just a really, really good film. Maybe even great, I would say, actually. So, next film I'm going to watch, it's now almost 7:30. I want to go out for another walk today, but I want to feel like I'm still going through with this, so I'm going to watch a short film and go to this man right here, Charlie Chaplin. If you talk about Buster Keaton, invariably Charlie Chaplin comes to mind. Also the 2 kind of great comics of the silent era, though a lot of people put Harold Lloyd up there as well, and we'll get to him in due course. But Charlie Chaplin, I've become a big fan of him over the past couple of years, particularly his sound films. I love his sound films. Last year I watched The Gold Rush and loved that. I'm a big fan of The Kid, but this is a Blu-ray set of his short films that he did with Mutual, is it the Mutual Film Corporation? He signed a contract in 1916 for a salary of $670,000. He he entered the film industry in 1914, so he's been making films for a couple of years at this point. And we're going to kick things off with The Floor Walker from 1916. So this is the earliest Chaplin stuff I've ever seen. I think the earliest film of his I've seen is The Kid, which is 1921 maybe. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see this, because I've seen his stuff from the 20s, I've seen his stuff from the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. So yeah, I hope the short is a good one. It's about half an hour long, so I'm going to watch that, probably go out for a walk, come back, and then maybe watch one more film. So on with the next one. Alright, The Floor Walker from 1916, Chaplin's first short with the Mutual Film Corporation. Not a great one. It's interesting, I really hate the whole Buster Keaton versus Charlie Chaplin debate, because to me, you know, why not just love both of them? And they were both great, but when it comes to comedy, it feels like to me, well, I don't know, I mean, I think I prefer Chaplin in the sound era. Films like The Great Dictator, Monsieur Verdot, Limelight, and his, I don't know, I mean, I love some of his silent feature films. The Kid, amazing. The Gold Rush, awesome. The Circus, love it. City Lights, Modern Times, fantastic films, but I didn't enjoy this one. But it's not a good thing to kind of judge someone based on one film. It is one short film, by the way, and there was no kind of, I hadn't heard anything about The Floor Walker. I just went on it because it was the first one on the set, and it's based around him coming into this department store, and he looks exactly like one of the managers, who is at the moment that he gets into the store trying to rip the store off from a bunch of money, along with another guy who is kind of the head of the store, the general manager, big bearded guy with big over-the-top bearded eyebrows, and that actor was really over the top, and I just didn't find him very funny. Even Chaplin at times, it seemed like he was trying too hard for me, but then again, you got to remember, this is literally a film that's 100 years old. Unbelievable that I'm watching a film from 100 years ago on Blu-ray. Some of the footage was rougher than others, but there was a big restoration effort that went into putting this set together in 2013. Well, not the set, but just restoring the films, and then, you know, a set was made from the restorations. But you know, some of it looked a lot better than other parts of it, and that was fine. But it was just, it felt a little too drawn out. It was like half an hour long. You know, I'm used to Buster Keaton's films, short films, being like 20, 22 minutes. I don't think the length was the reason that I didn't like it. Well, again, wasn't I disliked it. I just didn't like it that much. You know, there was a couple of fun. Here's a good thing I can do to kind of maybe compare things. Is with the Buster Keaton film we just watched, I would go like, I would laugh out loud, ha ha ha. With this one, it was more like, you know, like, oh, that's cute, you know. So that was the extent of the humour, and it is a film that is all about the humour. It's all about the gags, you know, knocking stuff over, you know, flipping around, doing all that kind of stuff. And there was this one gag on an escalator where Charlie Chaplin was trying to like run down an escalator that's going up, and he's doing his waddle all the way down, and then he'll fall over onto his bum, and then he'll get carried up again, and then he'll try and waddle down again, and it went on for like a minute, and it beleaguered the joke to the point of I was just like, can he get off that escalator, like, you know. So I hate to almost speak badly of him, but it wasn't great, you know. So I'm hoping that some more of the films in this are a lot better. The Immigrant I have heard of. I think I've heard of 1AM 2 as well. So I'm not sure. You know, if this is what's the word? Not premonition. An indicator of things to come. I'm not sure. I'll try and watch a few more of these during this marathon, but I thought I'd just throw that on before I go for a walk. It's now almost 8:15, and I'm starting to feel quite tired. So go out for a walk, come back, watch one more film, I think, and then go to bed and start early tomorrow, because a lot of stuff needed to be done today before I started, so I started quite late, so I should get more done tomorrow with the film watching. But yeah, Charlie Chaplin's The Floor Walker, interesting to see, you know, as far as Chaplin is concerned, but fairly unremarkable, I think. There's a great bonus feature on the first disc of the Blu-ray set. It's only about 20 seconds long, but it shows you Chaplin signing his contract for the Mutual Film Corporation. He doesn't have his trademark mustache, and so it's kind of cool to see him from like 1960, 100 years ago, without the trademark mustache he's got there. And yeah, it was a record-breaking salary where he'd get paid 10 grand a week, and you see him signing the contract, and then just like looking at the amount and going like, you know, like, how much money it was and stuff. And yeah, also, you know, I think, you know, all of Chaplin's feature films I've seen, I've loved. And I really don't know if these films are directed by other people. It probably said at the beginning, and I wasn't really paying attention. But it just felt like a very kind of, let's make a comedy short, and just, you know, let's just make a situation and just kind of put gags in. You know, Chaplin, you go in and just, you know, just get throttled and get punched and stuff like that. There's a cool little scene where he meets the guy who looks just like him, and they do kind of like a doppelganger scene, which was kind of fun. But there wasn't really anything stand out, and yeah, I just get the feeling this is one of those films that are just churned out, you know, to kind of, you know, let's just make a comedy short. I don't know. To me, it felt like that a bit. There was this woman who kept coming in halfway through, and she was looking at what was going on very carefully with her glasses, and mysterious woman in black, and she kept coming into shots and looking at stuff, and it never paid off. It never went anywhere. So, you know, I just thought, oh, I was expecting there to be some sort of big reveal at the end that she was a detective or something, but no. So yeah, I'm not sure what we'll be watching next, but you'll know fairly soon. Okay, I'm back from the walk. I started to feel really tired before I left, and then walked up to the lake and walked all around it, walked back. Was out for about an hour and 10 minutes, and as soon as I got back I started feeling really tired again. But I want to watch another film. I want to keep this thing going, so I'm going to watch, and you're going to listen to me talk about having watched it. A classic documentary, a classic silent documentary that is often hailed as one of the great documentaries in film history, and I'm very intrigued by it. Nanook of the North. I've wanted this for a long time. There's a US release of it that is paired with another film, I think, released by, I want to say, Flicker Alley. Either way, there's a US release of this, and it's always like $39, $40, just way too expensive. But I found this on Amazon Spain at a really inexpensive price, and from what I can tell, it has all the same special features, and probably has the same kind of transfer. Then again, the lobster logo is on the back, so this may even be a new restoration. I really don't know. The film's from 1922, and it follows an Eskimo, as far as I'm aware, directed by Robert Flaherty. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name. Oh, I can't read the back, it's all in Spanish, but yeah, as far as I'm aware, this is kind of and I think some of it was staged or something, I'm not too sure, I have to read up on it. And yeah, but we'll just get into this, give it a look, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Last year I watched two quote-unquote ice documentaries with The Great White Silence and The Epic of Everest, two films I loved, particularly The Great White Silence, so I'm looking forward to seeing another 1920s ice-related documentary. I'm not sure if this is in the Antarctic or whatever, really not sure. It looks like there's a Timothy Brock score. I know he does a lot of the scores along with guys like Robert Israel and Carl Davis, so it should be a decent score on the film as well. Anyway, on with the film. Alright, it's 25 to 12, I'm knackered, I'm ready for bed, but we're going to talk a little bit about Nanook of the North, or as it says on the front of this cover, Nanook el Esquimal. So I guess the Spanish title is Nanook the Eskimo. Real conflicting feelings on this. The first 5 minutes I was like leaning forward, like smiling, I was just in awe. I love stuff like this, just seeing these kind of exotic locations, but like from almost 100 years ago on film. There's something really weird and special and almost magical about it. But one thing I have to say is, if you're an animal lover, do not watch this film. And I consider myself to be an animal lover, and I understand that people out there in the wilderness, they need food, and the only food they've got are animals. So there are hunting scenes, things like that, which is fine, and it definitely conveys and shows what they needed to do to survive and to eat. But when you're seeing one of these gorgeous snow foxes, you know, pulled out of it, what?
You're gonna go into detail now.
Not too much detail.
Yeah, I don't want to hear it.
Well, close your ears then. When you see these snow foxes get pulled out of traps and stuff, and you're like, oh, I know they need to kill that, but I don't really need to see it, and things like that, and all different kinds of animals. And the one that really got me was the walrus. They're hunting these walruses, and they throw a harpoon, and they're just trying to. It just takes a long time, basically, and you see the long time that it takes, and it's just like, okay, I get that this is what they do, but I don't need to see this much of it, you know. And you see some animals get skinned, you know. There's a very interesting sequence where Nanook himself is fishing, and just seeing him do that was fascinating. And he pulls the fish out of the water, and then he bites it to kill it, and he's got this big grin on his face, and it's just, you know, obviously it's kind of savage, but that's kind of the way that they are, I guess. And that brings me to another point, which is the stage sequences in this film, and also the stage nature of it. This is very early into the life of documentaries, where the rules weren't really that defined. You know, nowadays when you make a documentary, you capture what's there, you capture real life. You don't augment it, you know, that much, or at least, you know, that's kind of the done thing. And here he kind of staged a lot of things. You know, apparently Nanook's wife in the film wasn't his wife. She was actually a common law wife of the director himself. You know, things like that. Things like there's a scene where they go and trade some fur to this trader, and Nanook sees this gramophone, and he can't understand how this sound is coming from the record, and he tries to eat the record, and it's very funny. But apparently he knew what a gramophone was, and it was just set up for comedic effect. And so it's, where do you draw the line? You know, is it documentary? Is it a docudrama? And does the stage nature of these things take away from it? Also, apparently at this point in time they were using guns as well. So when you see them hunting with harpoons, they weren't necessarily going to use that as their go-to weapon, but they did know how to use them and could use them very efficiently, as you see in the film. So it's up for debate whether Flaherty should have kind of done this. He kind of argues that he kind of molded it to kind of make the film he felt represented them, you know, the way that he thought they should be represented, even if he did kind of tinker with things and stuff like that. And I think Roger Ebert said that, you know, whether you stage a walrus hunt or not, it's still hunting a live walrus, and the walrus doesn't know the script. I think that's a great quote, and it fits. And he said that any kind of misgivings people have over the stage nature of it kind of disappear when you just look at how authentic the capturing of that kind of life is, you know. And it's not in the Antarctic, it's actually in the northern part of Canada, the Canadian Arctic. And so the first half of the film there's not much snow and ice, but when you get to the second half there's lots of snow and ice. You see this very haunting looking kind of snowstorm with the wind coming in and stuff like that. But it's so interesting to see how they did things, how they lived, Nanook in particular, the ways that he would do things and the way that he would build an igloo. That was probably the highlight of the film, was the igloo building sequence, and seeing him carve out these blocks and carve out a chunk of ice and kind of make that the window and kind of expertly installing it in the side of the igloo and stuff. And that's another thing, you know, they couldn't really get a camera inside the igloo, so that was staged afterwards as well, the interior shots. But you are seeing what they would do, how they would sleep, how they would wake up and things like that. So I actually think it's a pretty cool thing that he did here, because most of the film, I mean all of it really is so raw and authentic. The fact that he got them to kind of recreate what they would do, or maybe not in the instance of the gramophone scene, but you know, I think just adds to it. It's just the animal aspect that bothered me a little bit. You know, they have dogs that carry the sleds off and stuff like that, and there's a scene where the dogs get into a bit of a scrap and they're biting each other's necks and stuff. And yeah, okay, or you're showing that the dogs get into fights, but it just lingered on it a bit too long for me. I was getting a bit uncomfortable with it, thinking, is one of them going to die? And they didn't, they were just scrapping around. But you know, just seeing the dogs in close-up getting really angry and stuff, I don't like that. And then the very ending of the film was almost depressing to me. They get caught in a snowstorm, so they take refuge in this deserted igloo. And the small dogs, the tiny pups, you know, Nanook builds them a little tiny igloo hut, which is really kind of cute. But the older dogs, they're outside, and obviously they're built for it. They've got the fur, but you just see them just sat there in this, like in the middle of the night. Well, I don't know if it was in the middle of the night or not, or just tinted blue and filmed in the day. But either way, they're outside the igloo. And you can see the snow is blowing around, the wind, it just looks so cold and stuff. And they just caked in snow, and they're sat there stoically, squinting their eyes, and snow covering them. And then you see them lying down, and the snow's washing over them, and there's some very, like, just what's the word, kind of dour music playing over it, like violins and stuff. And then the end. It's like, is it saying that they all died or something? I mean, clearly the dogs, they sleep outside, you know, they're used to this snow and stuff, but it's not nice seeing the dogs with their faces plastered with snow and kind of squinting, and then that's the end of the film. It was a bit of a down note for me, when so much of the film had, you know, seeing the Eskimos, the Inuits, whatever you want to call them, looking so happy and full of life as they went about their day-to-day things, and that was kind of what this film captures. So yeah, that's my only kind of takeaway from this, is the animals. That you probably could, if you know, include the hunting, maybe just take out some of the lengthier scenes of them trying to pull the walrus back into shore. I didn't like that, you know, I mean, just seeing any animal in that kind of situation I didn't enjoy. But you know, it does capture what, you know, the whole kind of thing from start to finish. It shows you all these little bits of detail of their lives. There's lots of intertitles. There's a lot of intertitles, much like the two Antarctic documentaries, Epic of Everest and The Great White Silence. They're littered with long, lengthy pages of intertitles of, you know, describing things very poetically and things like that. You know, the dawn chill sweeps in, things like that. So yeah, that's about it really. There's a lot of interesting features on the Blu-ray. Lots of similar documentaries from later on, and there's one called Return to Nanook from 1988. So I'm assuming they returned to kind of the place where the film was made or something like that. That's quite interesting, and maybe something to revisit at a later date. But yeah, I mean, apparently his name wasn't even Nanook. So I don't know what the fudging of the details mystifies me somewhat. But you know, if you just view it as the film that it is, it has some great moments. It's very interesting, you know, just the way that Nanook was wielding this sword to cut out blocks of ice, and you know, he would for the sled in the morning, he would flip it on its back, and he would drink water and spit the water all across the sled and rub it up and down to ice it up, so that it would be able to go over the dry snow. I mean, it explains these details to you in the intertitles, which I found fascinating, and just seeing him lick the icy knife off and stuff, you know, it's just unimaginable, you know, and seeing how they cope and how they live with the big fur coats and everything. You see the babies in the back pouches, almost just like living in the hood of the mothers and things like that. It's a lot of cool stuff in it. But yeah, really good film. Really enjoyed it. Just yeah, definitely for the animal lovers, perhaps don't give this a pass, I would say. So yeah, that is it for now. That's day one. 3 films done. Not as many as I would have liked, but I'll be starting earlier tomorrow anyway. But yeah, that's about it. Day 1 done. Very cool. I'm excited to check out a lot more, and it's time for bed. Okay, and we're back. It's day 2, Tuesday. It is 12:10 in the afternoon. Got some stuff done this morning. Went out to the shop to get some stuff for breakfast, and now we're going to continue on with the silent movie marathon number 3. And as I said at the intro, this is going to have something of an international flavour, films from all over the world, from the silent era, and I thought I would maybe kind of try and theme the next couple of days, kind of, not like stick to the theme throughout the day, but at least have, you know, a few, if not, you know, at least 3 feature films covering some sort of theme during the day, just to make it a bit more fun for myself. I had no plans for any of the order of what films I'd watch at all. I just wanted to play it as it went, as I felt like it. And I feel like I'm going to watch these next 3 films as part of a kind of British invasion, I'm going to say. The next 2 films will be out-and-out British films. This is not really a British film, but it is by a British filmmaker. Perhaps, at the time of this release, definitely, in 1923, the most famous British filmmaker, Charlie Chaplin. A Woman of Paris. I've never seen this. I think this is the last of his silent feature films for me to see, which, I mean, he had a hell of a, you know, Chaplin had a hell of a feature film run from The Kid onwards. I mean, The Kid, you have this film, you have The Gold Rush, Circus, City Lights, Modern Times. You know, he had an incredible run of just great films. And this is a completely different Chaplin film than any of the other ones, because he doesn't star in it. He does make a brief cameo appearance in this. As far as I'm aware, he wrote the film, directed the film, composed the music, produced it, you know, all of that stuff that Chaplin, you know, used to do, and just really just be hands-on with every aspect of production. And it's a drama as well. It's not, apparently not that much of a comedy. So for me, I'll always say that I feel like he does drama incredibly well, and my favourite Chaplin is the dramatic Chaplin. So I'm really intrigued to see what he would do with a dramatic film without his own talent being at the forefront. Casting other actors, you know, directing them, that kind of thing. So I'm really intrigued to see what this film is like, so let's check it out and get stuck in with day 2. I found this very interesting. At the beginning we have a little title card saying, "To the public, in order to avoid any misunderstanding, I wish to announce that I do not appear in this picture. It is the first serious drama written and directed by myself, Charles Chaplin." So there's even a disclaimer at the beginning of the film saying, hey guys, I'm not in this film, you know, this ain't a comedy. I made it, but I ain't in it. So that's quite interesting. I mean, they must have promoted it as such as well. But perhaps for anyone who hadn't seen any of the promotion, I suppose, who would sit down in the cinema and be ready for the next Chaplin film, it at least gives you fair warning before the film starts, and so you're not sat there for 20 minutes thinking, you know, where the hell's Chaplin, you know. That's kind of cool. That's the only time I've laughed in the whole film. That was it. Wow. Very interesting. Alright, it is 2 o'clock. I've finished the film, A Woman of Paris. I've filmed some of my reactions to the ending of the film. I don't know whether I'll end up using that or not, so if I have, you've seen it. If you haven't, I didn't end up using it. But the last 10-12 minutes of the film really grabbed me in an interesting way, and I'll get to that. But first I want to talk about something else. If you remember, well, it was probably only a few minutes ago for you, it was over 2 hours ago for me, but at the beginning of the film, it said that, you know, there was actually a title card, an intertitle from Chaplin himself saying, you know, this isn't my usual stuff, it's a dramatic film, you know, I'm not in the film, that kind of thing, kind of warning the audience. I thought that was pretty cool. But I was flicking through the documentary on the Blu-ray, Chaplin Today. There's a series of those about all of his films, I think, that are on the Blu-rays and DVD releases of all the films. And I flicked through some of it. I haven't got time to watch all of it because I need to get on with the next film, but I was flicking through and I found a really interesting thing. When people went to see this film in the cinema, they were given a program, and there was a letter from Chaplin himself, and it's on the screen now. I'm going to read it to you. And it's quite a lengthy one, so but I want to read it so you get an idea for this. No doubt while you are waiting, I can have a little heart-to-heart talk with you. I've been thinking that the public wants a little bit more realism in pictures, whereby a story is pursued to a logical ending. I would like to get your ideas on the subject, for I am sure that those of us who are producing pictures do not know, we only guess. In my first serious drama, A Woman of Paris, I've striven for realism true to life. What you will see is life as I personally see it, the beauty, the sadness, the touches, the gaiety, all of which are necessary to make life interesting. However, it is not for me to say that I am right. My first thoughts have been to entertain you. The story is intimate, simple, and human, presenting a problem as old as the ages, showing it with as much truth as I am allowed to put into it, giving it a treatment as near realism as I have been able to devise. I do not wish that A Woman of Paris should appear as a preachment, or am I expounding a sort of philosophy unless it be an appeal for a better understanding of human frailties. After all, you are the judge, and your taste must be served. To some, it may look as though I have not taken full advantage of dramatic possibilities, while others may see good taste in the strength of repression, and by your reception, I will guide myself in the future. I was over 7 months in making A Woman of Paris, and I enjoyed every moment of the time. However, if I have failed in my effort to entertain you, I feel it will be my loss. Nevertheless, I enjoyed making it, and sincerely hope you will enjoy seeing it. Sincerely, Charles Chaplin. And at the end it says, a letter addressed to Mr. Chaplin, with a little thing at the bottom, will be given his personal attention. So he's asking for feedback there from the audience, you know, from the public, the movie-going public, about what they think of this kind of film. And it was a bit of a flop. It didn't do very well, unfortunately. And you know, this was, I don't know. I mean, I suppose with his films like The Gold Rush and The Circus and City Lights, I mean, they all had that dramatic touch to it. So it's not like he never did drama again, but he never did a full out-and-out drama. You know, without him being the star and comedy elements, at least, as far as I can think of. Perhaps later on in his career, I suppose, with his later films, but certainly in the silent era, that kind of marked the end of him doing these dramatic films, and that's, I don't know. Now my thoughts on it. I just find that interesting, and it also brings up an interesting discussion. How much of yourself do you put into a film after it's been released and as it's being shown to the public and it's being promoted? How much does a director, how much should a director put himself out there and be like, you know, this is what I want you to get from the film, you know, this is what I thought of the film. I mean, we have these directors who do interviews, and they'll do audio commentaries, and they'll do behind the scenes documentaries, and they'll do Q&As, they'll do press conferences, they'll talk about their films, that's part of their job. But there are other directors, like say Woody Allen, who don't talk about their films and never do special features for the DVDs, and very much just leave it to the audience. They don't really get involved in any of the talk of the film when it's released. They make the film they want to make, it's out there, and that is it. And I guess an argument could be made that if you talk about your own film too much, it might be a detriment to it, might be taken away from it, or something like that. But I'm not sure if this was the norm, if this has been done before, but certainly leaving a personal letter and note in the program to the film when you walk in to see it, I thought was a really nice touch, and I found his kind of his honesty really nice to read and to hear in this documentary, where he's talking about, you know, all those things that I just mentioned. You know, I just think it's really cool. The film itself, I really, really enjoyed it. I almost loved it. It was a really good drama, and certainly I can see where the realism comes into it. The ending I was not expecting at all. I wasn't expected to go where it went. As the story was progressing, I kind of could see where it was going, and it didn't go that way whatsoever. Even the very end, and if I did include my reaction, you'll see that I laughed quite loudly at the end, because it was building up to something, a reveal of sorts, that may or may not be, you know, what you were wanting from the ending of the film. And it turned out to be kind of flipping it on its head a little bit, and giving you a joke, giving you a laugh to kind of maybe soften the blow, I think. It definitely isn't the most typical of happy endings, but there is some hope there. There is a glimmer of kindness and doing the right thing, perhaps. You know, I thought the ending had a very positive message while it was still dealing with something that was quite tragic. And I just thought that there were moments in this film that were quite beautiful from the way it was shot. I mean, you know, not a lot of it was shot beautifully or anything. I mean, it was shot well, but there were a few moments where it was dancing with being a really like artistically shot thing. There's a scene where the lead character, the woman, is waiting for a train and the light is flickering in front of her, and you know, just things like that. But the story, I haven't even got to the story itself. We have a woman called Marie, and she's in love with this guy Jean. It's set in France, obviously. Well, not obviously. She could have come from another country, but she lives in France and she moves to Paris. And she plans to go with her boyfriend, her fiance. They're going to get married in Paris the next day, Jean. And so she's at the train station waiting for him to turn up, and something happens where he can't get to her. And so she just decides to go. She goes to Paris anyway. She goes on her own. She wants to make a change in her life. A year later, she's with this kind of rich playboy, and he, you know, he was brilliant, by the way. I thought the actor who played the playboy in the film was phenomenal. He reminded me a bit of Edward Norton in the face a little, but he was so damn good at playing this suave kind of, you know, nothing really phases him. He's got all the money, he can do whatever he wants. He didn't come off as slimy. He had the charming effect to him. You know, and you could, I could see how she was charmed by him, because he seemed so likable, despite how kind of up himself he seemed and how, you know, overly suave he was. But I just thought he performed brilliantly in the film. He was excellent. And eventually Marie gets reunited with Jean. Her life is now changed, and there's a lot for them to kind of catch up on. And, you know, is it possible for them to go back to the way they were at the beginning of the film, and all of the things that go along with that? Obviously some sort of a love triangle develops out of this, and we see kind of how the two characters who were totally in love at the beginning of the film find themselves later on in life, and where that takes them. But really it's about Marie, a woman of Paris, and I loved how she was a character who is the lead character of the film. We're following her throughout, and she is not I wouldn't say not the nicest of people, but she has her downsides as well as her upsides. You know, she is not painted as this picture-perfect woman. She makes mistakes. She makes bad moves. But you can tell how she makes them. You know, you don't necessarily feel like she's being a bitch in some of the bad moves that she makes. You sense that she's kind of been forced into this by kind of the things that have happened to her before, and how she's trying to just kind of, you know, make herself happy. You know, I really understood the character with every move that she made, even if at certain times she would make a move and I think, what are you doing that for, you know? Probably my favourite part of the film was one that I was a little bit disappointed with, because it was a really nice reveal, because when she meets up with Jean again, he's trying to make it as an artist in Paris, and so she asks him to paint her portrait. So he paints her portrait over a few days. He won't let her see it until it's finished. And the moment where she finally pulls the curtain back and she sees the portrait of herself, I thought was an incredibly sweet and touching moment. And you know, the scene itself was played out brilliantly by the actors. I thought it was wonderful, but it would have been better if I'd muted the TV, because the music, you know, this very touching, tender moment, you know, where as soon as she pulled back that cloth, you know, the music should have dropped way down and been a bit more dramatic. But it was like the da 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 da. It was all jaunty and jolly and stuff, and it just didn't fit at all. Now, from what I understand, it's Charlie Chaplin's score, you know, and they've recreated it, and so I don't know what was going on there. That was a part to me that was really disappointing, because the idea of the scene, the acting of the scene, the execution of the scene was wonderful, but the music just seemed to contrast and clash with it, where it should have been a more dramatic, you know, sweeping kind of sound, which you get in the more dramatic moments in the later stages of the film, which fit perfectly. Some of the big dramatic things that happened at the end of the film, they had the score to go along with it, and it made you, it connected you more to the visuals on screen by being hooked into the drama, both visually and through the audio. But in that scene, it was the da-da-da-da-da-da. I mean, I'm just approximating there, but it was a very upbeat kind of, you know, tap your toes kind of tune to a very, you know, to me, pivotal moment of the film. So that was a shame. But overall, I really, really enjoyed it. I almost loved it. And I actually, no, I did love it. Do you know, I loved it because it was different, because he was bold enough to try a different ending like this and to go with, I mean, not to say that it wasn't done, but certainly at this point, you know, I mean, it was done in other areas, in other parts of the world, but at this point, Charlie Chaplin, you know, he is the biggest star in the world, you know, especially as far as movies go, at least. He was an iconic figure at this point, you know. He'd been a big star for many years, doing his short films, doing his comedy. He came out with The Kid, his first feature-length film, and then he does a complete departure, a complete 180 from what he was known for, from what he was famous for, a dramatic, you know, drama, and, you know, and a drama that has an ending that completely goes against the typical kind of ending to a romantic drama like this. Even today, you know, you don't often see endings like this. And like he said, he was striving for something there. He wasn't sure people would like it, but he wanted to do something different and to convey a more realistic kind of, as he says, logical ending, you know. He wants a little bit more realism in pictures, or he thinks that the public wants that. So, you know, anyway, Woman in Paris, yeah, I loved it. I did love it. Very, very good film. And now I've watched all of his silent feature films, only a few more of his sound films to watch, and I've seen all of his features, but yeah, I really was a big fan of this. I liked the story, where it went, you know, it flowed well. You know, as with silent films, they got a slow pace to them, but it just, I really was invested in the main characters, and the kind of grey areas, you know. I just didn't think any character, well, of course there's minor characters, but the main characters in the film didn't feel flat, didn't feel two-dimensional. I felt like I kind of knew why they were making the decisions they were making, and I could relate to them because of that. And so, yeah, it was a really good film. Next up, I said British invasion. Probably not really a British invasion, but, you know, a British invasion into this marathon, we'll say. This is a film which I believe is called Downhill. It is an Alfred Hitchcock film. This is a European release, so it has a different title. Don't know anything about this film whatsoever. I just picked it up because it's an Alfred Hitchcock film. I wanted to see a Hitchcock silent. The summary on the back is in Spanish, so, you know, I really don't know anything about it other than it was released in 1927. Downhill, I'm pretty sure. If it isn't, I'll correct myself somewhere, but Hitchcock is an amazing director. Has made some phenomenal films from, you know, so many different decades, you know, from the 60s to the 50s to the 40s to the 30s even. I just watched a film of his from the 30s and I was blown away by it. It was amazing. So this is during the part of his career where he was still in his homeland of Britain making films. So I'm intrigued to see my first Hitchcock silent, and let's just get on with it. It is indeed Downhill. Alright, it is now 4 o'clock. I'm done with Downhill. And maybe it did go downhill from there. I didn't love it. Yeah, it was a bit too long for me. How long was it? It was an hour and 45 minutes. And I think this could have been a good maybe 70-minute movie. Maybe 80 minutes at the most. It just felt like it beleaguered its kind of storyline way too much. Now, Alfred Hitchcock directed it. You can definitely tell that a great director is behind this film. Very well shot. You know, some great kind of visual ideas there. Towards the end, there's this kind of this dream sequence that was phenomenal and well done. Double exposure effects, things like that. And I really enjoyed that last sequence towards the end of the film. The actual last 5 minutes of the film I didn't really care for that much. But the story revolves around these two schoolboy friends, Roddy and Tim. And they're in school, and I guess it's kind of like college maybe. I mean, it takes place in England. I mean, I know that the main actor was like 34 when he made this, but you assume that they're like, you know, 17, 18, something like that. They're about to go off to do bigger things, I guess. And they both get kind of seduced by the same girl. They kind of go over to the shop that she works in, and she kind of is kissing them both. And Roddy, the lead character, played by Ivor Novello, he leaves and lets his friend Tim get the girl, you know, and very much, you know, shows his character, I think, in that moment, and he leaves. And then it turns out the girl's pregnant, and she blames it on Roddy, who didn't sleep with her. And Tim, who obviously was the one who did sleep with her, he doesn't own up to it because he knows that it would kill his father, because he would lose his place at Oxford or something like that. So Tim doesn't say that it's him, and he lets the blame fall on his best friend Roddy. And Roddy is such a nice guy that he goes along with it to help his friend Tim, even though it's going to kind of chastise him and get him expelled from his school. And it's a private school. It's a very prestigious place, and Roddy was very much the star player of the school. He was the captain of the school year. He was the football, rugby star of the team. He had it all going for him. And his dad is outraged. His father is absolutely incensed that he's got himself expelled. And Roddy says, "Look, they've expelled me, but I didn't do it. It wasn't me." And his dad just says, with such venom in his face, "Liar," and that was a really good part. I really felt the emotion in that moment, and I thought the lead actor, Ivor Novello, was actually really, really good in this film. He's actually a fellow Welshman, born in the same city as me, and I thought he was a really good actor, and really conveyed a lot of his character's journey well, because it's really all about him. That's him on the front there, and there's a great scene where he's going down the London Underground stairs, and you see kind of this wooden escalator, but it's very much showing that his life is literally on this downhill turn, and that he's just dropping down further and further, and along the way he starts to maybe get a handle on things, but it keeps going. He just keeps finding himself going downhill until he ends up at the darkest depths of his life. So I enjoyed the story in that aspect, but almost every single bump along the way seemed to take just a little bit too long. I definitely think 20-25 minutes could have been shaved off this and made it a much trimmer, effective piece, I think. I don't know, there was just some scenes that seemed to drag on for far too long for me. And I just, and little things. I mean, I liked little things about it, he inherits this money at one point, and it comes across the screen, £30,000, which at the time must have been a fortune, and it's in big letters, like £30,000. And he finds this new girlfriend, and you can tell that she's kind of sapping his money dry, and then you get £30,000 in very small font to indicate that it's going down rapidly, and that she's kind of using him for the money. There's a great scene where he leaves home and everything is desperate, and he goes off and you don't know what's going to happen to him, and it opens on a shot with him in a tuxedo, and you think, oh, he's doing well for himself, that was a strange turn of events, and then the camera pans out and he's actually a waiter, and you're like, oh, he's a waiter, okay, so he's serving people and stuff, and then the camera turns and he's on stage, and all these dancers come in. He starts dancing along. He's actually in the theatre. So I love that kind of double trick shot there, where it made you think, oh, I thought that was really cool. So there was lots of interesting ideas in this. You could really tell that Hitchcock was trying to use the camera and trying to tell this story visually in an interesting way, in a different way, using different angles, using different effects and things like that, but not overly so, just every now and then. But I just felt like that it was just padded out far too much for me. By the time I got to the end of it, and the finale and the climax of the story, it was satisfying enough, but by that point I was done with it, So kind of a disappointment, but I still think it's a very good film. I enjoyed the use of tinting throughout, to indicate night scenes, but also just to, apparently I read that there's a scene where he's really hit his worst, and it's supposed to be tinted green to just make it feel sickly and just unwell and unnatural. And so yeah, I like the tinting in the film, and it wasn't bad. It was not bad. I'd say it was a pretty good film with some interesting ideas, but they just, again, it just padded way too much. I think that from start to finish, to get from that beginning to that ending, I just felt like you could have got there so much quicker and still have told the exact same story. And I don't think the added length added more to, because really you're just focused on him, you're just focused on Roddy. After the first 15 minutes, it's all about him. You're with him every single second of the film from that point onwards, and it's just, it's just hammering home the point that you kind of get it up to a point, and I know I almost felt like his acting suffered because of it, because he just kept having to show the despair and the despair and the despair, and yeah, so not Hitchcock's best by any means, but it was cool to see a Hitchcock silent. It was cool to see what he did in the silent era, and I will be watching another Hitchcock silent in Silent Movie Marathon 4, from the same year, in fact, 1927. I believe Ivor Novello stars in that also. So, Downhill, it was pretty good, but ultimately I have to admit it was a disappointment. Because there was so much potential there, I think. Now the next film, I'm going to take a bit of a break, get some stuff done, do the dishes, do a bit of housework, go out to the shop, get some stuff for dinner. We changed our dinner plan, so I'm going to be making myself some beef tacos, which if you're a follower of my channel, you've seen me cook that and eat that 1,000 times. I won't show you any of that stuff. Just assume that I'm eating tacos tonight. I'll probably mention it later on as well. So yeah, I'll probably take a bit of a break. Longer than I would have liked, and then we'll get right back to it. And I'm hoping to do 2 more films at least, so I can have 4 feature films done by tonight, and maybe another short as well. I'd love to kind of round off today with 5 films. So finally, to round off this trilogy of British invasion in the Silent Movie Marathon 3, another British film, one I had never heard of before. I guess I'd never heard of the Hitchcock film either, to be honest, but this is a new release that came out this year from the BFI, Shooting Stars. Now this is an interesting film because it is about films. It's a film about films, and apparently it's basically about people who make movies and things like that, and kind of takes you behind the curtain a little bit. Not a documentary, but a fiction narrative, as far as I'm aware, about people who make movies. It says a must-see for silent cinema fans. Shooting Stars is the brilliant and assured debut from British filmmaking legend Anthony Asquith, who oversaw the production despite the directing credit going to A.V. Bramble. Interesting. Offering a fascinating insight into the workings of a 1920s London film studio and boasting a boldly expressionist shooting style, dramatic lighting, and great performances from its leads. It is at once a sophisticated morality tale and an affectionate critique of the film industry. Very cool. I'm looking forward to watching this one. And also, speaking of lighting, the lighting in Downhill was fantastic as well. Some great moments of lighting that really added a lot of mood to the shots. And there's a great scene where the lead character, I should just hold this up, the lead character, Roddy, Ivor Novello, he gets taken onto this boat and he's at his absolute worst, and he gets dragged down these stairs and the light is coming down from the stairs. Beautiful shot. I mean, there's some fantastic lighting, especially on the close-ups of him at times as well, his eyes sparkling, but sparkling with the right kind of, despair. It gave that good look to it. So, yeah, it's still a very good film, but it's disappointing, overly long for me. So, yeah. But Shooting Stars, I'll be watching that next, so I will see you when I start watching this, which will be probably in a couple of hours for me, but instantaneously for you. Awesome. The curtain the curtain hath been lifted. So the opening sequence to this so far has been great, and there's a bit where the film crew are yelling up to the lighting guy, and he goes, and he says something. I can just tell by the way his mouth is moving that he's got a thick London Cockney accent. There's just something about the way his mouth moves. I can't even describe it, but I instantly pegged him as like one of those kind of old-timer London accents. So that was really funny on a really weird, random thing to spot level. Wow, an amazing shot there that just went through the entire studio. From and it's really high up, and it's like it pans over the whole thing. You see all the setup, the lights, the rigs, the scaffolding, cameramen, musicians. Follows what the characters, who looks like she's going to be one of the main characters of the film, this actress who you saw in that clip just then. She walks all the way through the studio, up some stairs, up onto another set that's on like a first floor level, and we're now looking at that set and it's still the same take. A really long shot showing you everything. Yeah, it's rare to see a shot like this in silent films. They were done, but that one was it's still going. It's still going. You're seeing them filming. Okay, it's stopped now. But yeah, that was like a good maybe 45-second shot. I don't think it was a full minute, but that was great. You just got to see everything, and I just had to point that out. So really loving this so far. Alright, it's 8:45 and I'm done with Shooting Stars. Just terrible, absolutely terrible. Sometimes old movies, they're just shit. What give me that look for?
Were you serious?
No, I'm not serious.
Okay.
Why you give me that look? You didn't see the film.
No, but like you agreed that the music was amazing,
Right.
and you once went,
Yeah.
and you put your hands to your face, and you don't do that very often.
Right. Okay.
So,
Yeah, oh, the jig is up. The jig is up. So yeah, I love the film. Awesome. It's not a masterpiece or anything, but I do think it's a great film, and I just enjoyed the hell out of it. I mean, you saw the bits when I was filming near the beginning. I loved the opening with all the stuff behind the scenes on the movie set, and it focuses on three main characters. May Feather, who is this actress, and she's a famous actress in movies. Julian Gordon, who is her husband, who's also an actor, and they act in movies together. And they do kind of like romantic kind of lead roles, you know, kind of goofy films, you know, and they kind of take the piss in this film of those kind of popular movies, you know, the guy rescues the girl, and it's a bit of a satire on that a little bit. And then there's a third character called Andy Wilkes, who is kind of your Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin type, though a much lower rent version. Just a guy in like a goofy hat and a goofy mustache, and he does like slapstick movies. And throughout this film you see him making his latest feature, people watching behind the scenes, you see it get shot, you see how they put slates in front of the camera, like if a take goes wrong, they'll write "do not print this" and they'll film a little clip of it, things like that. You'll see them filming on the beach on location, getting a stunt double involved, and that plays into the storyline. And essentially what you get is kind of a love triangle in the midst of all this kind of behind the scenes movie stuff. I did love all the behind the scenes on the set, things like that, and the trials and tribulations of being an actor, and kind of, again, taking the piss out of it a tiny bit of a satire, I think, and also seeing May Feather kind of go through this, you know, she shoots a scene, she goes to a dressing room, she takes her wig off, she puts on her fake beauty spot when an interviewer comes in to ask her about herself, and, you know, she comes across as a bit of a bitch in the beginning, but as soon as she's interviewed, she's all, oh yeah, I love children, and I love sunsets and all this, and you see the interviewer writing all these notes down, so that you see poking fun at the artificiality of movie stars, but also when this love triangle kind of comes up, I loved how there were some scenes that were very dark in terms of not the content, but the visual. You know, a lot of skulking around and you know, being secretive, and a couple of characters in kind of a, you know, dark room and lit very moodily and stuff. But when they're in that room, out the window you see this big building with neon lights, you know, May Feather starring in this movie. It's like they can never escape the life of being a movie star, and it's always hanging over them in some way, shape or form, to the point where, I mean, it's obviously she's involved in the love triangle, and that comes into the plot as well, where she's signing a contract to go make movies in America, because this is a British film, it's set in the British film industry. She's about to sign a contract to go make films in America, and one of the clauses is that she cannot be involved in any scandalous behaviour that might, you know, reflect negatively on, you know, her image, and therefore the studio that's hiring her and stuff. Lots of great scenes, but the music, oh man, did the music stand out. It was absolutely phenomenal. Did an amazing job with the score. I loved the way the piano sounded, was beautiful. The saxophones that came in, it was all appropriate and kind of like it just fit the tone. But yet again, just like the Chaplin film earlier, there was a scene which was really pivotal to the film. I'd say even more pivotal than the scene in the Chaplin film where the music was off. It was like the thing that's been building up in this love triangle for like over an hour, and finally, you know, it comes out, and the music is all jaunty and, you know, jazzy and stuff, and it just, you know, the acting was great, the way it was set up was great, the time they gave it was great, but it just didn't fit, and I was like, again? But most of the film, 90% of it, the music really fit, and it was awesome. Like, I want to download the score and just listen to it. I thought it was awesome. Definitely one of the best silent scores I've heard, and it's always tricky when you're composing a score for a film that was made 90 years ago, and you got to try and make it sound like it fits the time and all that kind of thing. And when you're dealing with scores that are made decades and decades and decades after the film was made, and you don't have the ability to talk to the director or anything like that, you've got to just kind of feel it out for yourself. Even in the booklet, I quickly scanned through it. I want to read through more of it because I really love this film, but the guy who composed the music did an interview for the booklet and talked about how difficult it was to kind of approach it, and I bet it is. Oftentimes my favourite silent film scores are scores that were written at the time of the film being made, and you know, the access to that music is there and they recreate it with an orchestra. But this is a new score, and I think it worked wonderfully for 90% of the film. There's another part near the end which is a really serious, like, down moment, and again the music, it was a bit more upbeat than I would have liked, especially because they had a great kind of downbeat kind of theme that they used throughout the film. A lot of the music is similar. There's not tons and tons of themes. It is 100 minutes of continuous music, so it does repeat itself a lot. But because I loved it so much, I was happy to hear it again and again, and I just thought it was a wonderful score. It was a wonderful film with some shocks, some twists, some turns, and I love the title Shooting Stars because it has a lot of different meanings to it. That you can, I'd say there's at least 3 ways you can read into the title Shooting Stars, and I'll say no more than that. I doubt anyone is going to really go out and watch this, really. But well, you should give me the nod, like, yeah, wrap it up, is it?
No, Shooting Stars.
Yeah,
I can think of one of them.
But you know, shoot it. It reminds me of the Rush album, Moving Pictures. The album cover of that is some people, like delivery men, moving these big portraits. So they're moving pictures, and then there's people watching the portraits crying. They're being moved by the pictures, and then on the back of the album you see that it's just a big movie set. So they're filming a moving picture. You know, I like that kind of thing. This one isn't quite elaborate, but you can definitely look into the title in quite a few ways. So Shooting Stars, great British film. I'm trying to think, have I seen many British silent films apart from the Hitchcock Familiar? I'm not sure, to be honest, but yeah, I mean, easily the best British silent film I've seen, but I think that's the only 2 so far. I'm not too sure. Anyway, one thing I wanted to add about the film is that it is pretty much the same length as Downhill, and at times it does slow down a bit, like it goes away from the behind-the-scenes movie-making stuff, and it's more focused on those 3 main characters, and it does slow down quite a bit, but for some reason, I just think the pacing was handled so much better. I suppose there are more scenes, there's more things going on, but this was a film where it was exactly the same length as the Hitchcock film Downhill, but I could have watched this if they had the same pace, the same fun, the same kind of inventive use of the camera and things like that. I would have watched this for 3 hours and been happy. I wanted more of it, you know, it was great. The ending was great too, the ending kind of, I liked what they did with it, and I'll say no more. There's a great shot where they're filming a scene in a church, and it looked great. I was like, wow, that's a great set. Is it a set or is it a backdrop painting? And then suddenly the camera moves down and you see that it's not even a backdrop, it's a front drop. It's like in front of the set, and you go underneath and you see the lights, you see a guy in the background painting another set. It was an amazing shot. It was kind of, they kind of opened the film with a great shot like that and ended it with one like towards the end as well. So lots of good stuff in it. It kind of overhypes it a little bit on the back, saying that it's amazing, innovative, you know, expressionistic shooting style. Not really, but there are flashes of that throughout, and the pacing was definitely very good. It got top marks from me. Love this film. Definitely one I'll be revisiting again and again. It's got loads of special features, but they don't seem to be linked to the film whatsoever, which is kind of disappointing. There's a lot of stuff in the booklet. The original screenplay is included on the DVD disc, which is really cool. But most of all the special features just seem to be silent era UK movie industry based stuff. So yeah, I'll have to look into that at some point. But there you go. The next film I'll have to decide on, and I'm going to go out for another quick walk, come back and probably watch one more film. So yeah, loved Shooting Stars, can't say enough good things about it, and yeah, that's it. Alright, I've had a walk, dinner has been consumed. I didn't have tacos because it was getting quite late. Connie got home later than expected, so we both had some chicken and some cauliflower. Yes, and Lily will probably keep crying through the remainder of this little intro to the next film because she is just an absolute bitch! And it's very difficult to get non-cat crying time for videos sometimes. It really, really is. I don't even know why dinner is important, but I like to talk about it, I guess, when I'm doing these stupid marathons. But I'll be having tacos tomorrow, and you'll probably see. Yeah, all the interesting beef taco-iness that you have come to be, no doubt, bored by with my videos and marathons. Anyway, the next film I've decided on will be the last film of the night. Might try and squeeze in a short, probably not. I'll leave the short till tomorrow, I think. But 4 features is pretty damn good. We're going to go with another documentary, much like we closed out day 1 yesterday. Though this is from 1929, which is towards the end of the silent era, and when documentaries were really starting to pick up. You know, you'd had a lot more kind of intricately made and edited documentaries at this point after films like Nanook of the North. So this is one where documentaries are really starting to become an art form unto themselves. Not that they weren't back with Nanook of the North and films like that, and even Great White Silence. because those were definitely artful documentaries. But I'm hoping for a lot from this one, and it probably sounds like the most boring shit in the world to most people. But what I'm going to be watching is Turksib. It says here it's from Turksib to Night Mail. Night Mail is a British documentary. If you remember last time, Silent Movie Marathon 2, I watched Battleship Potemkin, and I think that was Battleship Potemkin and Drifters. Drifters was a British documentary, so this is another volume from the BFI of the Soviet influence, a double feature Blu-ray with a Russian film and then a British film, and showing how the Soviet cinema at the time was influencing British filmmakers, and that's what this does with Night Mail. But the one I'm watching is Turksib. Maybe I'll come to Night Mail. In fact, I'm not even sure if Night Mail is a silent film. I really don't know, to be honest. Maybe I'll look into that, and if it is, maybe I'll check it out. It says 1936, so probably not. It says the critically acclaimed classic about the travelling post office. So it was probably a sound film, so I can't watch it in Silent Movie Marathon. There's lots of extra documentaries on this, which is kind of cool. In fact, oh, Shadow on the Mountains, 1931 silent documentary, a lyrical film about farming with expressive titles and cinematography. In fact, I think that was shot in Wales, so I might have to check that one out, maybe tomorrow. Anyway, Turksib is a 1929 classic from Victor Turin about the building of the Turkestan-Siberian Railway. So I'm a big train guy, so I'm hoping there's lots of cool train footage in this, but who knows. It's an hour and 18 minutes, an hour and 18 minutes. Hopefully it doesn't drag, but knowing Soviet cinema, it might be quite fast-paced with the editing and cutting, I'm hoping, and it'll be quite interesting. But let's dive into it. Enough of this faff, enough of this preamble. On with the next film, Turksib. I'm guessing this is going to be like an English copy of an English print. Yeah, Turksib is one of the most notable documentary films, both in its approach and its impressionist style. It had a considerable influence on the British documentary film in particular. Yeah, there's no English subtitles in this, so I'm assuming it's an English print with English intertitles. If there are indeed any intertitles, I don't know. If it's a documentary, maybe not. Maybe it just shows rather than tells, but we'll see. Nope, it does have English intertitles. Okay. Land of Burning Heat. I hope this doesn't have one of those interminable kind of avant-garde soundtracks recorded recently. Alright, I'll see you on the other side. Alright, it is 12:15, quarter past midnight. Turksib. I wish I had recorded my reaction to the end of this film, because I tell you what, I was just like, I mean, like, seriously, how do I even begin to get into this? Turksib, or Turksib, the story of the construction of the Turkestan-Siberian Railway, which I think it said in the film was 1,445 kilometers. It links somewhere in Siberia all the way down to part of Turkestan, which is near China, and goes through Kazakhstan, I guess. I really don't know. One thing I can tell you is that if you look into, well, I doubt anyone is going to go and pick this up. I doubt anyone is going to go and watch this. I don't know why I'm even saying it, but if you were by any chance to watch this with the hope of kind of getting all the information about the construction of this railway, about, you know, who's building it, about, you know, all the little details, this ain't the film for you. A lot of this film was spent with me thinking, where's this going? Explain more to me. I don't get this. I don't understand. It's split into 4 acts, and the first act is about water, and then the second act is about something else, and then the third act, it takes about 45 minutes to get to the actual railway being constructed, and it kind of builds up to it by showing you kind of the production of wool, of cotton, things like that, and how they transport the wool, how they transport the cotton across the country. And it kind of, if you're going into the film knowing what it's about, you can kind of piece it together in your head and go, okay, so obviously they need a much more efficient way of moving this stuff throughout this, you know, this massive stretch of land to make the production better and all that kind of stuff, and earn more money. Everything that goes along with stuff like that. So I was kind of just sitting there twiddling my thumbs thinking, when is this going to happen? The first act and the second act both had incredible sequences within them. It seemed to drag its heels a little bit, but the good thing about this is that there's always a great shot around the corner. There's always something really cool to look at. Every couple of minutes at least. But in the first act there was this incredible sequence of these workers, and again I don't know, I'm guessing in Turkestan. They looked Asian to me, and they're sitting around this dry, drought-ridden kind of area. You know, you see like a dog sleeping in the sun, and it just looks dry and hot and uncomfortable. And they just sat there in these pits, just waiting. And the titles come up. They're just waiting for water. You know, a rare shot of clouds that is, you know, but it gives them no rain. And then it cuts up to the mountains and these glaciers. And then it says the glaciers begin to melt in the sun, and you see the water coming from the ice, and then suddenly the water starts trickling down faster, and then the water starts turning into rivers, and it starts flowing and splashing down the mountain, and then you see the water fill up all the riverbeds, and it streams down, and the people stand up and they're running through the fields because the water has arrived. And obviously it's been cut to make it seem as if, you know, this has all happened so fast. Obviously water coming down from the mountains and forming rivers takes a lot longer than an instantaneous thing, but I love the way that it was cut, and it told the story quite well, even if it wasn't completely true to life. And you see them running in, and the editing was just phenomenal, just cutting through all this water and stuff, and the score was very, very good. I didn't love the style of music, but I did quite enjoy it, and it definitely worked with the film and the pacing, with the editing. I'd love to know, I would love to just sit down with the director of this, bring him back from the dead, give him the gift of being able to understand English and speak English. I'd love to just ask him so much about this film, like, you know, where did you film all of those shots? You know, how did you set that bit up? And, you know, what did you do when you were editing this film? Because to me, if I was making this film now, I would cut it to the music. I would cut it to the score to get that editing, because it's a very rhythmic film with the editing and the pacing and the cutting. It'll get really fast and really in your face, and then it'll slow down. But still, I mean, the pace of cutting is ridiculous for a silent film. We know this from Russian films of the time. They definitely had editing down to a fine art, and there were other people who did as well. I go to that film I watched last year, Cour Fidèle, the French film from the early 20s. That had the director of that had a really fast cutting style, but generally the Russians seem to really get it down pat when it comes to really fast, rapid, you know, quick fire editing. And yeah, I'd love to know what the original score was for this, if there was one. What was this film shown with? And there's no information about it. The information on this film is scant. You go on IMDb, there's nothing. There is nothing. There's no trivia. No one has talked about it. No one has even mentioned it. There's a couple of ratings. That is it. There's nothing. You know, go on Wikipedia. It's just a paragraph long saying this is a Russian film that was released by the BFI on Blu-ray. I mean, and again with the BFI, they've just included loads of extras of other kind of you know, similar documentaries about kind of, I guess, agricultural stuff. You know, film about farming and things like that. I don't know. There's also a newsreel shown at the British premiere of this film. I don't know if that enlightens it. And then there's some stuff in the booklet, but it's mainly about the editing and in the way that this film inspired people in Britain with their filmmaking, really. The second sequence that was incredible in Act 2 shows these people who have sheared all this wool off of sheep, and they pack the wool into bags, put it onto camels, and they're transporting the camels across this desert. And it really portrays this desert as this desolate wasteland and treacherous landscape. And they're taking the camels through, and suddenly a sandstorm hits. Incredible scene. I mean, the way it is edited, unbelievable. The music just complemented it, and you just see this wind, and the sand is hitting them like it feels like it's bullets hitting them. You know, you just see the guys just on the floor. They're like crawling through the sand, and they're grabbing onto the wool that's getting strewn across the desert. They're trying to protect the wool. The bags are splitting. You know, it's such a hectic scene. It's just, it's incredible. But there are the slow moments. You know, there are moments where I would check my phone and things like that, because it's just lots of shots of all the same kind of things. But it definitely tells a story, and then you start seeing the surveyors come in and kind of figure out where they're going to put the the railway tracks, and they meet some kind of primitives there who become very enamored with their car. I'm losing my voice. The Primiters get very enamored with the car and stuff, and that was a fun scene, and seeing the little kids running off and peeking out of their hut. Who are these guys in this? They called it the Devil's Chariot, you know, and they're laughing at it and stuff. And again, I just love the story that it tells, even if you're not really looking into the politics of it. Apparently this is a propaganda film, and it is promoting the fact that the Soviets have constructed this Trans-Siberian Railway and things like that. And it took them years to make and everything, to make the railway. I don't know how long the director was following this, but you definitely get a decent feel of how much it took to build this railway, because you see all the workers getting like the slats of wood and stuff, and camels carrying the wood and laying down the wood, laying down the steel, hammering it in, moving trucks of dirt and carts of dirt, and there's just great shots of all of this. I mean, it's not a dull film, because there's so much going on in it, and the cutting is very, it keeps moving, it's very brisk, and the music again helps that along. And then when the train finally is on there, that's when you get some cool scenes of the train flying past and all the workers, you know, keeping up with the train on their horses, and cool shots like that. And then towards the end, it just it goes into overload with the kind of promotion of this thing that they've done, and it kind of champions machinery, and how machinery is going to push forward things like farming and production of grain and wool and cotton and all that stuff. And so I can see where the propaganda elements come into it. I can see how the political thing works into it and stuff like that. And I've looked into the booklet a tiny bit, and you know, it's just lost on me, some of the political stuff about it. For me, I just view it as a great film that shows what man can do. Because it starts out showing man, you know, just harvesting grain and you know, what's the name, wool and cotton, and the way they use it to make clothes and all that kind of stuff, and how the man fights against the elements, like waiting for the water to come and fighting through this sandstorm to transport the stuff they need to sell, all that kind of thing. And then man creating by hand this railway that stretches for over 1,000 kilometers, and how that further helps man and all that kind of stuff. And I thought it was quite cool, because when you really think about it, a railway track that goes across an entire country, you know, it's pretty crazy. Someone had to, you know, get down and you know, and lay the, I mean, you see them blowing up parts of the landscape and blowing up rocks and clearing paths and things like that. Someone had to lay down those tracks, you know, slat by slat, you know, just nail by nail. And, you know, all these railways across the world were put down by someone. And it's quite an incredible achievement. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. But the English intertitles, which I believe were overseen by John Greer, who I believe was a guy who directed Drifters, the film I watched last year, which was pretty good. British filmmaker who's influenced by the Soviet directors. And John Grierson, I don't know if he translated the Russian intertitles, or if he made them up himself, or if he embellished them, because they are very in your face. I want to look into this, see if I can find out, because it would be very just like, you know, I'm trying to think of some examples. Like, you'd have an intertitle that's the beginning of a sentence, and then it would wait a minute before the next part, and it would still be the middle of the sentence, then another minute, and then there'd be another intertitle, and it was just like, they're going across the land, ... Okay, they're going across the land. They're going across the land. They're going across the land. To see? Oh, to see, yeah, okay. To see what? What are they going to see? They're going across the land to see. Yeah, I got the two bits of the sentence. We're 2 minutes. They're going across the land to see. It cuts again to see in capital letters, like, to see what? You know, and then it cuts to something else, and then it just doesn't end. And then towards the end, I mean, it felt like a 78-minute trailer for this railway construction, because at the end, the editing is absolutely batshit crazy. I don't think I've seen anything so rapid fire from this period of cinema. It's just like, it's almost like a frame a second. And it's like, Turksib, the railway will be here in 1930, 30, like, it's mental. I'm gonna have to include a clip, like, I can't believe, and then at the end it's like, it will be here, and the railway will be completed, the end. Like, what an ending. It was just like, I felt out of breath watching it at the end. That's why I was just like, almost having an epileptic fit, you know. So I'd like to know what the deal is with the intertitles, because they're very garish and they're very bold, and sometimes they work, sometimes they're a bit too full on for me, like, you know, man against nature, and you know, bit too over the top. And I'd like to know if that was the original intention of the Russian intertitles. And it's interesting because I can talk about a film like maybe Shooting Stars for about 7 minutes, a film that people might go and watch, and here's this Russian documentary about a railway being constructed that I've just talked for, you know, 13 minutes on, that I doubt anyone is ever going to go and watch, you know, but I loved it. It was just the edit. I mean, as an editor, I think if anyone is serious about editing, I think they should watch this, you know. And I could see myself watching this again. It was very enjoyable, you know. But I can't see many people enjoying it. I really can't. But you know, I just can't.
Like me.
Yeah, there's no way you'd watch it. This isn't a Friday night movie. This isn't even a Monday afternoon movie. This is, I mean, you have to be in the right frame of mind for this. I'm not saying that I have this thing where I couldn't sit down and watch this at any point. You know, I had to be in the mood for it. And doing this silent marathon, I'm very much in. I'm kind of in sync now, in tune with watching these silent films. And so, I don't know. Maybe I'm used to this kind of thing. But yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great. The editing in particular was just mesmerizing. And yeah, I'm interested to see this one, Shadow on the Mountains. It's about it's set in the Welsh Valleys, and it's only 20 minutes, so I might watch that tomorrow. But yeah, I mean, I wish there was more about this film itself, you know, because all the extras are just other films by other people. I'd like to hear some experts talking about it a little bit more, I don't know. But it does seem to be one of those kind of lost classics, maybe, really, because again, look on the internet for Turksib, there is shit all. There's nothing there about it information-wise. Maybe if I Google it, there'll be some kind of like blog on like the far outer reaches of the internet that someone's talking about it. I don't know. But anyway, there you go. That's Turksib, and I think that's enough for tonight. I've still got that 30 flashing through my head like fucking. It's like being at a rave or something. So yeah, that is it. Day 3 tomorrow. I've already decided what I'm going to do. Today I kind of started with 3 British films, kind of. A film from a British director, and then 2 British films, kind of my British invasion to the marathon. Tomorrow is going to be an international flavour. I've got a film from, I believe, Germany or France. Not too sure actually, but it's definitely from one of those 2 countries. Then I got a Swedish film, and this one I'm really excited about, the first ever feature-length Norwegian film. So a bit of Norwegian history in there. I'm really looking forward to that one. I'm not sure if there's any other international films I got planned for it. I don't think so. But yeah, definitely those 3. So more international stuff tomorrow. For now, I will go to sleep, and hopefully I'm not going to be dreaming of, you know, railway tracks flashing in front of my eyes. I mean, literally, I'm going to try and get some clips in there. Also, one of the best shots I've seen in a long time during the sequence with the camels. There's this hill, and it must be set like, you know, it must be filmed near the end of the day, and you just see these camels going across, just the silhouettes against kind of the sky. Just awesome shot. I'll try and, I mean, I'm literally going to have to rip the Blu-ray onto my laptop to get that shot, but I'm going to do it because it's worth including. So you should be looking at a picture of it right now, and I'm now annoyed at myself for saying that, because now I'm going to have to hold myself to it and rip the whole Blu-ray just to get that one picture. But there you go. That's it for the end of day 2. See you with day 3, where I will, yes, change my t-shirt. Alright, it is day 3 of Silent Movie Marathon 3, and I was looking at the lineup for today and thinking, hang on, I could finish this today, and I kind of got a little bit bummed out because, you know, last year it took me over 2 weeks, and this has been 3 days, but I think that it will kind of bleed over until tomorrow. I'm going to add another film I wasn't expecting to add, and so I think tomorrow I'll be watching perhaps maybe two feature films and a short, and today I'll be watching 3 or 4 feature films and a couple of shorts, hopefully. I always overestimate, but it's better to have something to work towards than to have nothing at the end. So the first one I'm kicking it off with is definitely the one I was least looking forward to in this marathon, in Marathon 4. I almost don't even want to watch this, to be honest. But it's kind of, I think, essential for me to see a film from this director, but the film itself just doesn't appeal to me whatsoever. So I was thinking of even doing this as the very first film, but I wanted to kick off with a spring in my step, so I went with the Buster Keaton film. But let's just get this out of the way. And as I said last night, or you know, a couple of minutes ago for you probably, today will be something of an international mix of films. We'll have a film from Germany, which is this one, Norway, Sweden, and so on. So here we go. Ernst Lubitsch's Madame du Barry, or du Barry. I want to say du Barry for some reason, but I'm going to go with Madame du Barry. Bit of nipple there on the cover, if that kind of thing interests you. I don't know what's going on that cover there, but this is a film from 1919, I believe. Yeah, German film, and you know, Ernst Lubitsch is definitely a figure of silent cinema who I've heard many things about, but have never delved into his filmography. Have no idea, you know, what even are his best films. So this could be one of his great masterpieces. This could be just a film that he made. I think it's one of his earlier ones, really. So I'm not expecting anything amazing, as is usually the case with Masters of Cinema. Well, not usually, but sometimes with Masters of Cinema. Of course, this is a Eureka Masters of Cinema title. They will just kind of license the films that they can license, and not necessarily the greatest ones from every director. So, you know, sometimes other rights to better films will be out there and kind of licensed by different companies. So I have no idea where this stands in Lubitsch's filmography. I have no idea what his style is even like that much, to be honest. So it'll be a discovery for me. Yeah, I just want to kind of get it out of the way and over with. It's 2 hours long, and I'm just getting flashbacks to yesterday with the Hitchcock film, where I was kind of getting quite bored with it. So, and this is the story of it. I'll tell you from the back. It's a recounting of the torrid affair between the title character Madame du Barry and France's King Louis XV. The picture spans scandalous intrigue at the court and the ring of the guillotine among the riotous mobs of the Revolution. Not my kind of thing, a period film, and again, a period film made almost 100 years ago, but the lead, or one of the lead characters, King Louis XV, is played by Emil Jannings, who is one of the great silent era actors. Just had a phenomenal career. I've seen him in a few films, and he's just wonderful. So hopefully his performance will be good in this. But yeah, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't at least a huge amount of trepidation going into this. Let's get into it. Also, it is 3 o'clock, so starting much later than I would have liked. There was definitely just a lot to do this morning, so you know, I had to work out, shower, go up to the shop, get some stuff for Connie, and did a little bit of work as well. I still got to work on stuff, and so Madame du Barry, here we go. Let's turn the volume down a little bit. Yeah. Oh, a drama in 7 acts. Maybe that'll make it easier to watch if it's split up into 7 acts, I don't know. Director Ernst Lubitsch. But yes, it's 3 o'clock. Connie left for work fairly late, you know, just after 12. So she's going to be out, and then she's going out with her work friends. So I'm going to have most of the night to myself, and I should have no interruptions for the next 3 films. I would have loved to have started when I got up this morning at 10 o'clock, but there are things to do, and Connie had to use the TV and stuff, and so, yeah. It would be great to just kind of just fully dedicate myself to the silent movie marathon and just do nothing but watch these films, but you got to kind of work it in to normal day-to-day life as well, and you know, working from home, I need to get some of that stuff done as well. So that's what I've done for most of today, and I'm happy with the progress I've made today with certain things, and now I'm looking forward to just sitting down and watching some good old silent films, but still very dubious about this one. So wish me luck, even though by the time you see this I will have already watched it, so just, you know, don't wish me luck, because it's pointless, but, you know, it's the thought that counts, maybe, I don't know. Here we go. Okay, this looks old, it looks really old. This is, I mean, you know, obviously silent films look old, but this one just looks old, like old, you know. So, yeah, I'll show you a little bit, and then we'll probably cut to me in 2 hours' time. Old, not obsolete. Okay, it is 6 o'clock. Yes, it took 3 hours to watch the film because I paused it a couple of times and did a lot of reading up about some of the real life events that this was based on, and I kind of got lost in it. But you know, the film itself was just so boring. It was rote. It was very hard to watch, and again, I'm completely kidding. Madame du Barry, great film. I loved it. I mean, I had a smile on my face at certain points during this. It was a lot of fun, but it was serious. The ending was very dark, and you know, you see the beginnings of, well, not even the beginnings, but just, you know, the revolution in the 1700s in France, which I know again very little of, but you know, you see a lot of you know, the story goes into towards a dark area towards the end, but you know, in its opening and middle stages, there was a lot of fun to be had in this film, I thought. And it tells the story of Madame du Barry, who was a woman of the street, you know, not a prostitute as far as I'm aware, but what I mean by that is she was at the lowest level. And I love how the film opened with her character. It opens in this hat-making shop, you saw a clip of it, and it focuses on this woman. Oftentimes with silent films, they'll start with something, and it won't necessarily be one of the main characters or whatever, but I loved how it followed her from almost shot one all the way to the final shot of the film. It follows this woman. I forget I think her first name was Jean. Yeah, and she basically is engaged to a guy called Armand. And one day she kind of crosses paths with a very powerful man, and he becomes very enamored with her and finds her very beautiful, and this was true in real life. She was a very beautiful woman and attracted a lot of attention, and he kind of swept her off her feet and kind of lured her with kind of attention and wealth into kind of being his mistress. And then she gets lured away to someone else as well. She still loves her fiance Armand, but she kind of gets caught up in it all and goes along with it and ends up with a guy called Du Barry. And then she catches the eye of King Louis XV, and basically he then acquires her. She becomes his mistress. I mean, she gets changed hands plenty throughout the film, and she has to marry one of the Du Barrys to become Madame du Barry, so that she can kind of be officially acknowledged in the king's palace and the court and all that kind of thing, because she was kind of very, you know, being shady behind the scenes with King Louis and stuff. So you see her entire journey. You see, I mean, I loved her relationship with the king, played brilliantly by Emil Jannings, who's just a fantastic actor. I think he was an Oscar-winning actor. He's brilliant, and he was as great as ever in this. Really funny performance as King Louis. Like, I love how he caught the eye of this girl, or this girl caught his eye rather, and he really liked the look of her. So he got, you know, he sent for her, and he comes in to meet her, and he holds his hand out, you know, kiss my hand. And she looks at his hand for a second, and then she just grabs him and kisses him on the cheek. And he's so taken aback by this, because you're not supposed to do that to the king. And then she sits down on his lap and stuff, and he just cracks up. He finds her brilliant because she doesn't treat him like a king. She treats him like a person. And so they have a lot of fun together, and so it's almost played for a bit of a comedy. And I just found it really endearing and funny. And the actress who plays Madame du Barry, I thought was phenomenal. And her name is... I should say on the back, yes, Pola Negri. Now, Pola Negri, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, was a Polish actress. I've been looking into this, and I find it fascinating, because sometimes I'll watch these silent films, and an actor or an actress will catch my eye, and I'll find something captivating about their on-screen performance, or presence, or charisma, or just their look. And I'll look them up afterwards, and sometimes there'll be no information on them. Or if you look at a film like The Passion of Joan of Arc, it was, you know, the woman who played Joan in that film. That was the only film she ever did. But I looked up Pola Negri, and she was a huge star. Polish actress who went over to Germany to do films. She ended up working with Ernst Lubitsch, and they made a lot of films together. He kind of put her as the star of many of his films, and then he and her basically were kind of the first imports to Hollywood. She was kind of the first European actress to go over and sign a deal with Hollywood, and kind of paved the way for a lot of people who would do that throughout the 20s. She did it quite early on, including Lubitsch. He was the first kind of foreign director to be signed to a contract in Hollywood. Directors from Germany also, like F.W. Murnau and Fritz Lang, would then follow. I mean, a lot of people did. I guess really, if you were making films and you wanted to really get somewhere with them in the silent era, you would eventually end up in Hollywood. Look at Chaplin, look at Hitchcock, you know, Murnau, Lang. I'm sure there were plenty others, Lubitsch himself. And so, I mean, she really had a storied career, you know, affairs with Chaplin and all this thing, and had many years of fame and fortune, and you know, at one point she was like the, you know, the it girl of Hollywood apparently, and owned this massive house that was modeled after the White House. I mean, it's crazy, because to me she seems like such a quaint girl in this film, and she's meant to be at the beginning, but also throughout the film I feel like she always kept that character's initial charm from the beginning, even though she becomes the most powerful woman in France, even though she becomes this woman who is in such a position of power. She can get whatever she wants. She can stop people from getting sentenced to death. She can have someone, promoted, you know, just because she wants them to. And yet still you sense that there's that little girl beneath the huge blonde wig that she wears, and the elaborate, elegant dresses. And the film is a little slow at times, again 2 hours long. It kind of was, maybe I would say it could have been a better film if it was a little bit shorter. Say it's 2 hours long, maybe if it was an hour and a half, an hour and 40 minutes. But unlike Downhill, the Hitchcock film from yesterday, I don't feel like it dragged like that film, because there's always something going on with the story that takes you to a different place. It's going up, it's going down, and we also follow her fiancé from the beginning, Armand, and his journey. He gets imprisoned, and his character goes on such a journey, arguably a bigger journey than Madame du Barry herself. And I loved their relationship, how you see both of the characters, and eventually when they meet again later on in the film, I loved all of it, you know. And I don't like these period pieces set in the 1700s, you know, but I have to say that I really did love this film. The set design was incredible. It really evoked the time period, and the big battle towards the end with the revolution starting was phenomenal. You know, such a great sense of scale to it. Reminded me of films like Intolerance, and Die Nibelungen a little bit as well. And yeah, I mean, you really can find these hidden gems, these hidden epics. You know, it's kind of a mini epic towards the end, you know, with the revolution scenes and things like that. But yeah, what else can I really say about it? There's a lot of dialogue, a lot of intertitles, a lot to read through, and it had both the French and the German translations, and then obviously the English at the bottom on the Blu-ray. But I like that, because it's a story that's set in France. And so perhaps for French viewers it would be nice to see, but also just to have it there, because to maybe be authentic to the story, I guess. I liked that it had the French and the German text, although I think it was French and German. It very much looked like it. I'd be very surprised if it wasn't. The left side of the screen definitely looked French, the right side definitely looked pretty German, I don't know, but on the bottom there was like a Nordisk film logo, so I really don't know where the intertitles came from, but I enjoyed that there was like these two translations. It was cool. And yeah, what else? I'm trying to cram everything in there. I don't want to speak too long about it, but I just really enjoyed it, and I really liked Lubitsch's style. There's some cool shots in there. There's a great little shot that I sent a clip of it and sent it to Ryan Chataway, because he's starting his silent movie marathon today, which is kind of cool. He's doing his second one this year. And I said, look, it's a 1919 CinemaScope, because there's this one shot in the film where Lubitsch cuts off the top and bottom half of the picture, and it's a very pivotal moment of the film, and it gave it a grand epic sense of widescreen scale, even though it's not really widescreen. And I just thought it was really cool. I'd never seen that in a silent film, where it was made to look widescreen, even though it kind of wasn't. It reminds me when I used to make films as a kid, and it would have the option to have the cinematic effect, where you put the black bars on the top and bottom, which make no sense when you're filming in 4:3, because it's just making it a smaller square. It's not making it look cinematic at all. But this was back in the day when we had square TVs, and there was no such thing as a consumer, you know, bought widescreen TV before that age. So it was the closest thing you could get to making it look like a film, even though it was pointless to do it and you're just losing information. Anyway, rant over on that. I really love Madame du Barry. I could see myself revisiting it, and that is something I never thought I would say going into this film. I really didn't. I thought I might be able to enjoy it for what it was and appreciate some of the aesthetics of the costume design and the production design, the sets, and even like the big kind of massive buildings that they use to really sell this feeling of the King's Palace and everything. And I thought I would enjoy Emil Janning's performance as well, but I think that Pola Negri was a real revelation in this. I can't wait to see more of her films, because I thought that she was great in the film. She really portrayed such a playful, fun side to to Jean's character. She had a lot of fun, and I loved seeing her enter that world where all the people there are just like they don't like her because she's a commoner basically, and some real prick characters who really don't like her, and she basically gets to do whatever the fuck she wants because she's dating the king or she's his mistress, you know, kind of hush hush but everyone knows kind of thing. And I enjoyed seeing her kind of have that power over them, and you know, it's interesting seeing a character like that who. Is it still going? Are we still going? I'm running out of memory card. I'm going to have to change it and come back. Right, so as I was saying, Jean, you know, she basically, her fate is ruled by the decisions she makes in going with these men and kind of being won over by the wealth and the power that they provide her with in kind of exchange for her body, basically. I mean, you can tell that she has a good time with them, but often it comes back to her love for her old fiancé, Armand, and that plays into the story later on as well in a really nice way, I felt. And I love the performance from the guy who played Armand as well. He did a great job. He had to kind of shoulder a lot of the emotional weight of the film towards the end, but she does a great job of doing that too. And in a character who again is kind of put in a position near the end where you kind of think, well, you know, she kind of got herself in that place, you know, to be honest. You kind of still empathize with her. It might not seem like it on paper, but when you see the film, I think that Paula Negri's performance is so likable that you really do empathize with her towards the end, even if she has made some moves that aren't the best. You know, you can see where the naivety of her character has led her down this way, and perhaps she's gotten in way over her head. And so I really like that about it, because otherwise you would just be looking at a character you don't care anything about, and so her fate ultimately would be something that you don't really care about, and then the film isn't as interesting. So there you go. Madame du Barry really surprised me. There's another film on this called When I Was Dead, and it is Lubitsch's, I think, third film from 1916, his earliest surviving film. Only 37 minutes. I might watch that tomorrow. I might just try and squeeze that one in there because I'm quite interested. It doesn't look anywhere near as grand though, to be honest. I mean, it really seemed like the budget was big for this one, and I still have no idea what in the flying hell this is. I really don't. This isn't a character who appears in the film. This isn't, you know, her. I really don't get it, you know. I just don't understand that cover whatsoever. Maybe it was one of the promotional posters, I really don't know. But I would have preferred to have seen a poster with her on it, or, you know, the king or something, I don't know. But, yeah, fantastic release. Oh, the booklet kind of spoils the ending right there. Oh, I guess that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be from near the ending, but they don't, even still, I don't know. I guess I can see it actually, but it doesn't look like that in the film. So I don't know. It's more of a artist impression, perhaps. Maybe it's an artist impression of the real life events, perhaps. That might be it, which is kind of cool if that's the case. Next film I'm going to watch is one I've been eagerly awaiting. I got this Blu-ray quite a while ago, and it was hard to find. It is the first ever Norwegian feature-length film. Gypsy Anne, or if we're going to go with the Norwegian title, Fanta Anne. Not really good in the pronunciation there, but I think that's kind of how you would pronounce it. But I'll go with Gypsy Anne from now on. And this is a film that has a Blu-ray release, and I heard about it because I started this thread on Blu-ray.com called the official UK silent films Blu-ray thread, and I kind of collected every Blu-ray release of a silent film from around the world and kind of made like a master index list. And people helped me out with it, and one of them was this, and I thought, what's this? Looked it up, and it was the first Norwegian feature-length film. I was like, wow. So I tried to find some information about this. Nothing. There was nothing on the internet, so I had to just try and find it. I couldn't find it in stores here in Norway. Eventually found it on a website, ordered it, and it took about 3 weeks for them to even find a copy to ship, but they finally sent it. I don't think this is readily available anymore. It was released many years ago. I swatched out the case for a clear one because, you know, it's the first Norwegian feature film. Might not be any good, but I wanted to give it a feeling of more importance than it had when it arrived in a blue case, and I thought, I'm going to put a clear case in this one to make it look a little bit more elegant. What I love about this, and again, you can't find this out online, but this is an English-friendly release, like to the maximum. On the back we have all the information about the film, the cast, and, you know, a little synopsis and everything in Norwegian and in English. Inside we have a nice booklet which has images from the film and lots of little, you know, information about it in English and Norwegian. It's like basically doubled. You have the Norwegian in the front, and then the English in the back. I'm trying to find a picture if I can find one. I don't know really what this film's about other than we have the titular character, Gypsy Anne. And in fact there isn't any pictures in the booklet, so I lied there, I just guessed that there was. So there aren't any, oh I guess there's one on the inside page there. Very nice release, in Blu-ray and DVD. There are special features. You can watch the film in English or Norwegian, so I'm looking forward to checking this out. And I doubt, even though this was released in 1920, that it will be anywhere near the quality of the production of Madame du Barry. I mean, Germany and America, to me, when I think of the silent era, I think of those two countries more often than other ones, because, you know, they were very prominent with big films and big budget films. You know, you look at films like Intolerance, Birth of a Nation in America, and then films like Madame du Barry and Die Nibelungen in Germany, these huge epic scale productions, and Metropolis, you know. Norway, you know, even now is not really much of a stronghold for film, so I'm sure that this is going to be a lot more quaint than Madame du Barry, but I'm looking forward to it and hoping it'll be a good time. But either way, I'm glad to just own this as a piece of film history, and of course, being a resident of Norway, I am interested in the culture and the history of it, and when it comes to film, then it's kind of a win-win situation. So I'm going to check this out, see what it's like, and after that I'm going to have some dinner. So on with the next film. Alright, so I am done with Gypsy Anne, the first ever feature-length Norwegian film from 1920. Who directed this thing? It doesn't say, well it probably does, but I can't understand who is supposed to be the director on this, so I'm not really sure. I don't want to butcher it. So yeah, it was directed by someone. I really should know that. What can I say? This will probably be the shortest review or, you know, section about a film, because there's not much to say. It's a sweet little film. It's not a bad film. It's not a great film. I wouldn't even say it's really good. It's just a good film. You can tell how, you know, it was, again, the first of its kind in Norway, and that they were really trying to do something for the first time. It feels like a first film. Some of the acting in the beginning, maybe not so great, you know, maybe people looking at the camera a little bit. A couple of side characters whose acting was a bit, you know, unconvincing to say the least. And a couple of moments here and there. There was this bit of information that was relayed to the main character because she heard it through the other room from two of the other main characters, and that was fine. She learned something she needed to hear, which progressed the plot. But before that scene, there was another scene where a random side character just walked up to her and kind of very awkwardly stood there, sat down, and kind of just said, "Hey, you know this, right?" And then he stands up and just walks off, and it was so, you know, unconvincing. And the kicker is she didn't need to know that information, because she was going to find out in the following scene from the main characters, nevertheless. So that was such a pointless scene. It's about an hour and 15 minutes. And it's about this girl, Anne, who grows up on a farm on this mountain in Norway. So there's lots of cool shots of the, you know, the awesome mountains, and it looks like a fjord, or at least a very big lake. So there's some nice scenery shots and stuff like that. I liked how it was tinted in sepia for the most part, and the classic, you know, tinted blue for night scenes, which were quite good in this actually. Sometimes films go a bit overboard with the tinting, silent films. This one did it quite well. I feel like I enjoyed the tinting in this. Yeah, so Anne, she grew up on this farm on the mountain, and she has a brother called Haldor, and she finds out as a kid, I mean, we have like a 10-minute prologue where she's a young girl and her brother Haldor is a young boy, but she finds out she's not really Haldor's sister. She's a baby who was left at the farm when she was born, and so she's not really a part of the family. And you know, the woman who took her in, Haldor's mother, very much tells her, you know, you don't belong here. You know, she's not a very nice person. So Anne, when she's grown up, and we flash forward, she's an adult, a young adult, she doesn't really have a place. She's a farm girl. She works up in this summer farm that's higher up in the mountain on her own, kind of, as a milkmaid. But Haldor has got his sights set on his former sister. He's sweet on her, and he wants her to come and live with him. And you know, she's like, well, you know, and I'm not going to go to the whole film obviously, because there's no point, and I doubt anyone is ever going to watch this. But this film, and there's another guy who's involved as well, and he kind of was maybe a more enjoyable part of the film, I think. And I was waiting for something to happen, you know. It's like, okay, we got this, you know, the love drama, you know, the stigma from the town because she's a poor girl, and Haldor had done well for himself growing up, and so he had it all set out, but his mother wanted him to go with a girl who had a wealthier family and who had a family. You know, she thought it was in poor taste to go with a girl, whether he grew up with her or not, who has an unknown, you know, origin, that they don't know where she's from, what family she's a part of, so it wouldn't be the right thing to do. So Haldor has to wrestle with that kind of responsibility from the social aspect of it. You know, will the people, and more importantly, my mother, look down on me if I go out with this girl, who I love? And very much kind of, it seems, you know, has an affection for Haldor as well, and it's all about how it's going to play out. But as I said, I was waiting for something to happen. And something did happen, finally. It was a big incident, and that incident kind of colours the rest of the film, the next 20-25 minutes, and the repercussions of that are felt big time, and that's where the film moves into even bigger melodramatic areas. There's a couple of scenes where there's one character, his face was painted white. I mean, he was a white guy, but I mean, you could just see in the close-ups, and it even looked like there was a line across the top of his forehead where the paint stopped. And it was really creepy and weird, and like you could tell by his lips, even some of his lips were painted white. It was very strange. Even in one of the close-ups on Anne, it seemed like her face was painted white too. I don't know if they did that to make the faces stand out more on camera. I really don't know. I've never heard of that, but yeah, I just didn't know what that was all about. That was quite weird. Overall, you know, by the end, it was a satisfying enough ending. You know, some of the intertitles were a little bit, I don't know whether the Norwegian was translated badly to English or whether it just had that kind of feel to it. And it felt very much like a storybook kind of story, you know, and then this happened and so on and so on. Then he went to this house and then you see it, you know, it's it very much tells you, you know, they say, you know, show don't tell, but this was tell and show and tell and show, and some of the dialogue would kind of be timed badly with some of the characters. Like you'd be looking at one character and then the title card would come up, but clearly it was the person who's in the other side of the conversation talking, and yet it would still cut back to them, if that makes sense. So some of that wasn't done very well either, but I commend it. You know, it has its place in history. I'm glad that I own it. It's a nice little film. The Blu-ray looked very good. It was nice to see all of that kind of, you know, 1920s Norway in all that detail, and to see it, a film from back then, was really cool. I liked the opening scenes when they were kids. It had a very much a kind of Enid Blyton kind of feel to it, you know, kids getting up to mischief and stuff, and that was probably my favourite part. The first 10 minutes was when Anne and Haldor are young kids together. I really liked that, although the young girl wasn't very good at acting sad. You could tell that she was just going like this a lot just to make it seem like she was crying, which was a shame, but you know, it is what it is, and I'm sure that they were, I mean, you know, first film, you know, in Norway, they didn't have, you know, screen actors probably at the time. I don't know anything about the backstory behind this, but obviously everyone in this is their first film, you know, so it's one of those things. It's uncharted waters, it's untested territories. Then again, there might have been plenty of short films before that. Maybe they came from acting in short films. That's entirely a possibility, but nevertheless, the first feature-length Norwegian film, 7 minutes I've been talking for. I thought that it would I could sum it up a lot quicker than that. But yeah, it was a fine film, nothing special, you know, just the fact that it was the first of its kind for Norway, and it's good to see them making good films now. When I first got together with Connie, she was like, oh, Norway, they're not good at making films. And then, you know, things like Troll Hunter came out, which, you know, again, some Norwegians think that film was crap. I love it. Headhunters, I think, is a brilliant film. They just came out with The Wave this year, which was a really, really good film. So, you know, it's good to see. It's good to kind of go back to the roots, the very first one. Very interesting, but it is what it is. The next film we're going to watch, and maybe the last, rounding off this little trilogy of foreign films, so to speak, all the way from Sweden, over there, we have The Phantom Carriage. Classic Swedish film, I would say. You know, just like a legendary silent film that I've heard about. I heard about this film before I was even into silent films. I remember Chill Pilgrim picked this up and it sounded interesting. Of course, we have a Criterion here. This is a US edition, so I will have to bust out the region free player to play this one. Very excited. Always an event for me when I get to pop in a Criterion and watch it for the first time, or even the second, third, fourth and fifth time. But this is a film by Victor, let's see if I can try and pronounce his name, Sjöström? I don't know, I'm not good with pronunciation, and if any pronunciation I have tried to master and have failed miserably, but the one that I've tried to is with Norwegian, so it's different with Swedish. I mean, it's very similar at times, but Victor Sjöström, I'll go with that, we'll go with that. And I know that he was a very influential director in the silent era, and it says here Ingmar Bergman was inspired to make movies. And it's a Dickensian ghost story and a deeply moving morality tale, not mortality, a deeply moving morality tale, as well as a showcase for groundbreaking special effects. 1921, in tinted colour. Let's check it out, The Phantom Carriage. Not to knock the Norwegian film Gypsy Anne, but I mean, I'm like 3 minutes into The Phantom Carriage, and like already, just like from a storytelling perspective, a lighting perspective, it's miles ahead of it, even though it was only released a year later. You know, there was nothing too remarkable about the way that Gypsy Anne was filmed. You know, it was shot well and everything, but this is like filmmaking. You know, not to discount it though. I'm just saying, you know, it's like, this is what a great film feels like. You know, so yeah, enjoying the story so far, and even the acting is really good. So, alright, I just had to rewind this back and just show it because I've seen cool special effects in silent films before. Even in a film a year after this, 1922, Dr. Mabuse the Gambler, Fritz Lang did this multiple exposure effect where a guy was hallucinating and seeing 6 different versions of himself at a dinner table, and it was done, you could see, you know, it was a bit rough around the edges. But I tell you what, this is one of the best, if not the best, double exposure effect, if that's what it's even called, but you know, where you kind of have a see-through object on the screen. This is death coming to claim someone who's just killed themselves, and it's just it's so well done. That's just so impressive to me because it doesn't, yeah, I don't know. I've seen effects like that and they're ropey, you know, and you can kind of see around the seams, but that was practically seamless.
How strong is he?
Yeah.
He just picked him up.
Oh, it looks like a dummy.
Must be a dummy.
Looks like a dummy, yeah.
Insanely
Superhuman strength. Well, he is dead, so. But yeah, I had to just record that because I was unbelievably impressed with that. Because I'd heard people say, oh, the special effects in this are amazing, and I keep thinking, well, I've seen effects like this in other films, but that's probably the smoothest I've seen in a silent film of that type of effect, next to maybe Buster Keaton. But that was extra cool because he was picking up a body, or picking up the see-through soul of a body from another body. I mean, like, it was just perfect. Very minor detail I wanted to touch on. There's a group of guys sitting in a graveyard. It's New Year's Eve and the clock was showing 20 to midnight, and one of the guys says, let me tell you a story, and we see the story, and when we cut back to them they look up at the clock, or you see a shot of the clock and it's 10 to 12. And I was looking at the timer on the Blu-ray player and it was exactly 10 minutes, so I just like that little detail, whether intentional or not. I like that it actually played out in real time. That was pretty cool. Okay, it's 20 to 12. It was 20 to 12 when you first saw the clock in the film. Spooky. Phantom Carriage. I can't really talk about it very long because Connie's gone to bed, and I could probably talk for a few minutes, but it just wouldn't do this film justice. So I'm going to talk about this in depth, properly tomorrow morning. But to kind of give you the short opinion, I absolutely loved it. You know, it was spooky. It was moving, almost to the point of, you know, moisture forming in my eyes. It was incredible. Like, I was not expecting it at all. I was expecting to have a really well directed film with some cool visuals and maybe a nice gothic tale to go along with it, but it was not what I was expecting at all. And maybe one of my favourite silent films. maybe I would probably put this in top 50 best films I've ever seen. I think so. Don't hold me to that, but that's the feeling that I get. This is a masterpiece right here. Really, really is. And I can't wait to talk about it tomorrow, but this will be good because I'm going to probably spend the next half an hour just looking up details about the film and kind of hopefully giving you a much bigger range of context with the way I'm going to talk about the film, I suppose, and some backstory on the people behind it, I think, and the director himself, who, what a job. Yeah, I'm going to leave it there. Tomorrow I'll sit down and talk about this, but I mean ooh, it slipped out of my hands, but I caught it. Don't want to drop a criterion. I think we've peaked here. I really do think there's one more feature film I had planned. I'll probably watch 2 features tomorrow. Finally get around to those damn shorts I've been trying to fit in the past 2 days and haven't got to. So tomorrow I'm going to have kind of a shorts day, and I think 2 feature films. But I think we've peaked here. I think we found the diamond in the pack. Yeah, this is. I mean, I haven't been rating the films this year, but Ian Forkwall messaged me yesterday or today and said, any 11 out of 10s yet? Because there were a couple of those last year, and you're looking at one right here. Absolutely. So I'm going to go to bed. This will be playing on my mind all night, and we'll reconvene tomorrow for day 4, the 4th and final, for Silent Movie Marathon 3. What a film. Okay, day 4, the 4th and final of Silent Movie Marathon 3. It is 1:30. I had some stuff to do this morning. Again, I've been out, I've done stuff, done some work, and now I talk about The Phantom Carriage, which has been on my mind since the minute I finished it. It's been on my mind since the minute I finished my short little video that you saw just then. Since, you know, I went out for a walk, shortly afterwards I went to bed, it was playing on my mind. I was looking up information about the film, the director, and speaking to Ryan Chataway enthusiastically about it for like half an hour, and I convinced him to watch this last night, and that's something that's really cool. We have a bit of an inter-marathon connection link there. We've crossed the streams somewhat because Ryan started his Silent Movie Marathon yesterday, I think I mentioned it, and I think he was only going to watch 2 films yesterday, and I said, you've got to see this if you haven't seen it, because he hadn't seen it, and I was surprised because it seemed like a film he would have seen. And I was like, you just got to do whatever you can. You got to just pull every favor, call in every contact, and you know, fish out bottles from the bins and buy this Criterion and watch it for your marathon this year. And he said, I got it. I was like, you've got it? And he sent me the screenshot that it's available on Hulu Plus or something, this streaming service he has. And I was like, dude, watch it tonight. And he did. And I woke up this morning to a few messages from him where he was just like, wow. And yeah, I can't wait to hear more from him. Maybe I'll talk about that later. But this is just, it's difficult because I went into this film with very low expectations. Not low expectations, but I had tempered, mild expectations. I was expecting to enjoy this. I was expecting to appreciate it. I'd seen clips before. I'd seen the special effects, you know, where they film it twice and they have kind of the person on screen looking like a ghost because they kind of see through, kind of a double exposure effect, and so it has a ghostly appearance, and you see the Grim Reaper, you know, in his hood with the scythe, and he's trundling along in this phantom carriage, this horse-drawn carriage of death where he's collecting the bodies, and it's see-through and tinted blue and it's all spooky and stuff, and I was expecting like a cool little ghost story out of this from what I'd seen. But it was completely different to that, I think. Well, not completely different, but very different, I think. And it just caught me completely off guard. And it's tough because I would love people to watch this with the same amount of expectation that I had going into it, but by virtue of anyone watching this right now, I'm already overhyping it for you, which is a shame. Because I tell you, there's nothing like going into a film, not expecting too much and being absolutely blown away by it. Now, would I still have enjoyed it as much if I went into the film knowing it was a masterpiece, knowing that it was this great film? And, you know, I'd heard great things about it. You know, for years I've made videos about silent films, and people would always comment, you got to check out The Phantom Carriage, you got to check out The Phantom Carriage. And after a while I was like, yeah, I get it, I got to check out The Phantom Carriage, I'll get to it, don't worry. And I was waiting to buy the Blu-ray, to pick it up on the Criterion and watch it that way. But I didn't really take those words that seriously, you know. I didn't think it would be as good as people were making it out to be for some reason. I don't know why. And yeah, I mean, I went into it and was blown away by it. And if I had known, like I just said, if I had known really how great it was before I went into it, I still would have enjoyed it. But there's something extra special about being, about a film over-delivering when you're sitting down and you have something in your mind, you have a picture in your head of where this film's going to go, where it's going to take you, and how much you're going to enjoy it. And when those get kind of blown away and just, you know, knocked down and stuff, it's really, really cool, and it's a nice feeling, I think, when a film over-delivers like that. Anyway, I don't even want to talk about the plot, you know, and I think what I'm going to do is I might save the plot until maybe the end of the video. I don't know, maybe I'll do some kind of spoiler section, because I would love people to go into this film without knowing really what it's about and where it's going to go, because it is so expertly plotted, it is so expertly scripted, directed, lit, you know, everything about this film is firing on all cylinders as far as I'm concerned. And the plot is amazing, because it opens with this scene and it's like, oh, this, you know, I mean, like I said, you saw that clip just a while ago when I was watching it, and just immediately it felt like a proper great film. The lighting, the way the camera was placed, the acting was phenomenal from the get-go. You know, I mean, I'll say this, it opens with someone on their deathbed, and it was gripping. It's like, who is this person? You know, why are they dying? You know, why are they so obsessed about this certain thing? And as the film goes on, you're still wondering, well, how does she play into this? You know, what are they talking about with this other guy? And at first I thought maybe this is one of those silent films where, you know, they have these threads of the plot that go, you know, unsolved, or there's just these weird little side bits that don't really need to be there. But I tell you what, by the time you get to the end of this film, every single scene is absolutely necessary, and the way the plot unravels, the way that it goes backwards and forwards, the way that it starts to link together as the film goes on, hour and 40 minutes, hour and 45 minutes even, you know, it really takes its time in giving you all the pieces to the puzzle, and by the time you get to the end, it all makes sense and it just completes the whole film. And I loved that about it. That was one of my favorite things about it, was the plot and the way it was unraveled, the way it was revealed as the film went on at its own pace. It didn't rush it, it gave you everything you needed. So one thing I would say is, when you're watching this, pay attention, because everything, I feel, is vital to the story, and not a minute of this film is wasted. It is directed by Victor Sjöström. I don't know how to pronounce that, which again really bothered me, because I've got to give this guy so much credit. Victor Sjöström, what a director! What a director! He put together an amazing film here, from the visuals. You know, I mean, I showed a bit of the special effects, and the special effects, like I said, the smoothest of its kind of the silent era I've ever seen, and it's quite early on when they were doing these kinds of effects. I mean, I'm sure they were doing them in the 1910s, but really, you know, you go beyond this later on into the 20s. They do the double exposure effects, and I think this is probably the best example I've seen of it. That was just so smooth, and it worked for the story. It wasn't there just to be flashy, just to be like, let's have a scene where someone's dreaming and we can do all these double exposure ghost effects. You know, no, this was absolutely vital to the story. It wasn't overused. It was used perfectly within the framework of the story. It served the story, and that is why it was the most acute use of these visual effects that they could do back in the silent era that I've ever seen. Not only were they executed so smoothly and perfectly, but they were executed in a way that it was absolutely vital to the story, and it helped the story, and it wasn't there just as a kind of you know, frivolous thing to kind of show off. It really, really worked with the story. The lighting was phenomenal. It was just lit so well and just added so much to the atmosphere and the mood, the cinematography. It was shot well. And the acting was phenomenal. I thought the acting was so strong in this film, particularly from the lead actor who plays the main character, David Holm. And it's played by Victor Sjöström himself. The director is the lead star in this film. He was in his 40s when he made this. I think he only acted in a handful of films. He was a director for a long time, and you know, he would do various little things, but I don't think he really, you know, directed and starred as himself a lot. Only a few times. I mean, maybe this is the only time he did it in his own film. I really don't know. I've looked into bits of his filmography, but he had a very interesting career. But his performance here as David Holm is extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary, because not only was he such a great performer and sold this story so well, he shows so many different facets to the character of David Holm. Like, when I first saw him, there's no way I expected him to be the lead character of the film. And his character just went through so many different changes, so many different parts of his life, so many different emotions, so many different, you know, looks, you know, the way he looked, the way that he moved, the way that he acted. You know, you had these moments where he seemed jovial and fun and likable and, you know, kind of just that lovable guy. There are other times where he was cold and callous, and I felt almost scared by him, right? There are moments where he shows such a vulnerability, such an emotional frailty, that I was, you know, tears were forming in my tear ducts. I never cried, but I mean, the emotion was there. And I have to give him so much credit for being able to deliver that amazing performance, as well as directing and putting this whole film together. I believe it was based on a book, and he went up to the author of the book and he kind of acted out the whole film for her to kind of, I guess, get her seal of approval. And yeah, Ingmar Bergman, a legendary Swedish filmmaker, perhaps even more hailed than Sjöström, I guess, because he had a very long career and made many classics, Seventh Seal and all those films. And there's a short interview on the Blu-ray with him talking about how when he first saw The Phantom Carriage, it moved him deeply, it affected him. And I'm just sitting there going, yep. I mean, this honestly, this film and my watching of it last night is why I love films. I live for moments like last night. Again, I hate to overhype it, but it's just the way I feel about it. And I can only, you know, at the risk of coming across as a pretentious wanker, say that this was just such an amazing experience to sit down and watch, and it moved me. There was a scene in the middle of the film where it wasn't so much a, oh, that's really moved me. It was just a constant state of being in this emotion for about 5 minutes, and the music was beautiful and helped it along, and I was so captivated by this scene in the middle of the film where, you know, there was such a sadness to it and such a rawness to it, and I was so in tune with the film, and it was mesmerizing. It really was. And again, I hate to overhype it, and I use the word pretentious, but I am not pretending to be anything. I'm just giving you my thoughts on this film and the way that I reacted to it, and the way I reacted to it was that it just blew me away. And I've used these kind of, you know, these platitudes far too often now. Blew me away, masterpiece, all that kind of stuff. But this is one of those films I will say is a masterpiece. This is one of those films I'll say is an 11 out of 10. This is one of those films I would say is one of the greatest I've ever seen. I just loved it. It perfectly suited the kind of film that I like. I think it's one of the most sophisticated silent films I've ever seen, from mainly the plot and the way the story is told. I suppose around this time, the way that the narrative unfolds was quite different and quite unique. I'm not going to say it's the first one to ever do it, but definitely the story is told not completely in sequence, I'll say. But man, there's so much in this film. Like I said, every minute, you know, it just feels like everything's there for a reason, you know. And just looking at the composition, where like everything is in the frame, like the sets, you know, the locations. It was just fun. And there's a scene in this as well, which is, should I even give it away? Yeah, I'll give it away. There's a scene in this that if you if you watch it like me and you're a film fan, you'll know exactly where it's from, or you'll know exactly where this scene probably had to have drew inspiration from The Shining. The classic scene in The Shining where Jack Nicholson is smashing down that door with the axe. It is right out of The Phantom Carriage, almost down to the framing of the shots. It's the same scene, you know. I mean, it's crazy. Like, we talk about, you know, oh, I saw this old film and it had something that reminded me of a newer film, so maybe that newer film took inspiration from the older film, and you can kind of go, yeah, that's quite interesting. Recently, I watched the 1930s documentary Triumph of the Will, a documentary about a Nazi party rally in the 30s in Germany, and there's a scene where Hitler is walking down this aisleway to kind of give this speech, and the camera pans up, and I just thought, that's Star Wars. That's the end of Star Wars. It's a shot of Luke, Han and Chewie walking down at the end of the victory celebration, and I kind of took the two shots and put them together, and it's uncanny, you know. But you know, it could be coincidence. It could just be one of those shots that's done like this. But with this Phantom Carriage, there's no question about it that Kubrick got this scene from The Phantom Carriage and used it. I mean, it's a slightly different context in The Shining than in this one, but I mean, it's right out of the film. It's crazy. And that's neither here nor there, but I guess, you know, I don't know, the themes in this film, and again, the journey the main character goes on, and another credit to Victor Sjöström is how the main character, who he plays, is someone who the audience, I think, could very easily become so callous towards, or not callous, what am I trying to say? I think the audience could very easily become disconnected with the main character and not feel any empathy for him, and just feel apathy for him, and not really care about the main character's kind of feelings, emotions, because he does questionable things in the film. And I think it's a credit to the way that Victor Sjöström played him, because I still felt for his character. No matter how kind of far he fell down, I still wanted him to, in some way, get back up, and in some way redeem himself. So, you know, I mean, about 15 minutes into the film, there's some characters, and they're like, oh, let me tell you this story about the Phantom Carriage. And I thought perhaps it would be maybe like a ghost story anthology film. I had no idea what to expect, but it became such a grand story about this one man and his life, and I guess I am going into the plot a little bit, but you know, I think I'll leave it there. I don't think there's even much more I can go into. I was planning on doing a spoiler section. I was planning on maybe at the end of the marathon talking about this more, but I think I've covered everything I can with this film. I've either overhyped it for you or I've sold it to you. Either way, there's not much more I can do, but you know, be honest about my opinions and stuff. And we've peaked. We've peaked here. You know, I may as well just close the doors on this Silent Movie Marathon 3, because it's never going to get as good as this. I just can't see any of the films I have lined up being anywhere near as amazing as this. This is the masterpiece of the marathon. This is it, man. I absolutely adored this film, and it will be an all-time favorite for the rest of my life, you know. And it's cool to kind of chronicle and chart these kind of marathons, because I can kind of, you know, look back on this in like 20 years or something and say that was the morning after I first watched The Phantom Carriage, and look how excited I was about it. Again, I live for these moments as a film fan, watching films like that for the first time and just getting so excited about it. You know, it's an inspiring film to me, just, you know, and again, the guy was in his 40s when he directed this, when he starred in it, and it gives me some sort of hope when I'm in my late 20s and thinking, I'm never going to make films, you know. Hey, maybe it's never too late, you know, to make a fucking masterpiece like that. Now, the next film I'm going to watch, or the first film of day 4 as we close out this marathon, it's 54 minutes long. It's the first of 2 features I'll be watching today, and yeah, I think when you go back to the silent era, 45 minutes onwards to me is kind of a feature-length film, especially the year that this was released. I have my Region 3 player out and running still, so I thought I'd pop in another Criterion to kind of just go along with it, so I don't have to drag it out again and plug it in and all that good stuff. Another Criterion, Stagecoach from John Ford, the legendary Stagecoach, perhaps one of the most famous silent films of all time. A lot of people hail this as maybe the greatest silent film, and I've heard many great things about it. Relax, I'm kidding, I understand, it's not a silent film. We're not watching it, but there is a film on the Blu-ray, which is also directed by John Ford, which I'm really excited about, from 1917, Bucking Broadway, a silent feature by John Ford, one of his earlier films. Now, I haven't seen Stagecoach, and I really want to, and the only John Ford film I've seen is The Quiet Man. So I'm going from one of his later films in the 50s, and then rewinding like 30 years to the 1910s. To see Bucking Broadway. I know nothing about it, but I'm looking forward to watching it. I love it when they include kind of silent films on the bonus features of films like this. It's really cool, and yeah, I mean, it's a good old cowboy film, I'm imagining, and I'm just going to dive right into it and then give you my thoughts afterwards. Alright, I'm done with Bucking Broadway. I guess I don't really need to hold this up because, well, I guess I can. It gives you the feeling of cowboyness, I suppose. Bucking Broadway, 1917, I really liked it. It was a really good little film. Nothing spectacular, nothing great. There's some kind of moments that seem to kind of predict or foreshadow, you know, the future of John Ford. There's some great kind of landscape shots, this expansive views of the Old West, you know, this really, really cool stuff. And when it's a film that looks this old and rough, it really, well, it didn't even look rough, to be fair. I was very pleasantly surprised with how good this film looked. It was in good shape. It didn't look phenomenal, but it was more than understandable. You know, I could see quite a lot of the detail I'm not even sure if it was in standard definition or high definition, to be honest. I think it was standard def, but if it was a very good transfer and very good bitrate and stuff, because it looked great. It's about this guy called Harry who works on this ranch, and he falls in love with the boss's daughter, and he asks for a hand in marriage, and she agrees, and you know, it's a slow kind of nice kind of family oriented film. You know, the father's like, oh, I can't be having that, and then he's like, well, I guess you're right, it's just hard to say goodbye to my daughter and stuff. Just a nice little sweet kind of cowboy film. And then this city slicker comes in, Eugene Thornton, and he kind of he sweeps the girl off her feet and kind of takes her off to the big city of New York. And so Harry has to go and find his love and kind of save her from the clutches of this evil city slicker. Very simple setup, enjoyable, you know, shots every now and again. The story was, it was a slow moving one. You know, it's not one I would say you got to see this by any stretch, any means. It was just a decent, fun, enjoyable old cowboy movie. I really do want to see more films from the 1910s, because I've seen so many from the 20s, and I like watching ones from the 1910s because there's a different feel to it. I think there's a different edge to it, because, you know, I feel like the 20s, I mean, obviously it was, the 20s was the last decade for silent film, but that's when it really came into its own. So it's interesting to see films that haven't quite grasped everything yet, but when you see little flashes, it's really interesting, and you could really tell John Ford had a really good grasp of where to put the camera and how to tell the story. The ending was awesome. When Harry finally kind of gets to find the girl, and there's a massive fight, and he brings all his cowboys with him to the city, and well, he doesn't really bring them, they're there already, but he calls them in, and you see the cowboys, like, you know, just stampeding down this city street on horseback, and I could just imagine the crowd like 99 years ago in the cinema just cheering and hollering and getting really into it and stuff. At that final moment, the editing is fast paced, the cowboys are riding in to save the day, people are punching each other, flying off balconies, flipping each other into this kind of this pool in this fancy like restaurant and stuff. It's an awesome finale. Good old-fashioned fist fight, just mass hysteria, people running around, punching people, throwing people through walls. It's fucking awesome. I really love the end of Bucking Broadway. It was a really good fun time. Now, I'm going to watch, let me think, 2 or 3 more shorts before we get to the final feature, the final film of the marathon. I'm going to pick them out now, and I'll get back to you. Alright. Chaplin. I feel like good old Charlie's been a little bit neglected by me. You know, we didn't start on good terms in this marathon. The Floor Walker I wasn't a big fan of, so I'm going to give another Chaplin mutual short a try. I'm going to go with the next one in the collection, The Fireman, which I'm assuming will also be from 1916. So I'm going to give another Chaplin short film a look. Nothing more to say, let's get right to it. Looks like Chaplin's pitched a tent there. Had no idea. Okay, I am done with the Chaplin film, The Fireman. Pretty good. It was pretty good. I enjoyed it a lot more than The Floor Walker. There's still a lot of Chaplin's early silent humour that just doesn't really gel with me. You know, there's a couple of funny moments there. I did laugh out loud a couple of times, but a lot of the times it's just, you know, there's bits where he's the driver of a fire truck in this fire station, and at certain points he'll kind of take this axe and just start hitting people with it, you know, kicking people up the arse. But the axe thing, where like at one point he accidentally hits his boss in the head, like square on with an axe, straight in the head, boom, and his boss kind of gets knocked a bit silly, a bit loopy. And I know it's a comedy film, I know you're not really supposed to look into it in that much detail, or take it that seriously, or for it to be that realistic even. But, you know, just when you take an axe and you hit someone in the head with it, you know, and I'm talking about like the sharp end, you know, that's going to crack their head open. That is going to slice through their brain. And obviously you can even tell it's wobbling, it's a fake axe, obviously. But there's something that just doesn't ring true when I see someone get hit in the head with an axe and there's no repercussions from it other than they get knocked a bit silly. If it had been the flat end of the axe, totally works. But I feel like you have to work within the limitations of logic to some degree when you're doing stuff like that, because I really didn't like that bit for some reason. I just didn't really fly with me. Because, you know, everything else in the film, the peril that evolves later on towards the end of the short film, is very much born of a real life threat, you know, whereas an axe to the head, that's instant death, you know. So that was just something that bothered me about it. There's a woman who appears in the film as kind of one of the main side characters, and it was the actress from A Woman of Paris. So it was cool to see her again, and I really like her, and so I think she was cool in the film. Played her part well, and Chaplin was good as usual. Actually, the first time I've seen Chaplin really kind of go out on a limb physically. There's a great scene where he literally climbs up this building, up like 3 stories, almost Harold Lloyd style. And I'm 90% sure it was him as well, because at first he runs towards the camera, he's unsure whether he's going to do it, then he runs up to the building, and he scales the building, then comes back down with the girl on his neck, and it's a clear dummy, but I was impressed by Chaplin for that. That was pretty cool. Yeah, it was a good film. I think what I'm going to do with this is probably watch all of these, you know, on my own, outside of the marathon, and maybe by the time we get to Marathon 4, I can kind of go over this set and kind of tell you my brief thoughts on the rest of the films, and if I kind of get on with his short films better than, you know, than the first two. Again, I enjoyed it much more than The Floor Walker. There's something about that one that just didn't really gel with me. There are bits about this one that didn't really gel with me. We have the same character from, or the same actor from The Floor Walker, the big guy with the big mustache and the crazy eyebrows, who's really over the top and stuff. I feel like he fit more in this film than in The Floor Walker, so I did quite enjoy him actually. But yeah, that's it. I'm probably going to watch the other ones, which are The Vagabond, 1 AM, The Count, The Pawn Shop, Behind the Screen, The Rink, Easy Street, The Cure, The Immigrant, and The Adventurer. So I'll probably watch all of those over the next couple of weeks, just kind of take my time with them, and then speak to you about them in the next marathon, which for me will be very soon. Now the next film is a short film I've been really intrigued to check out, and it's included as a bonus feature on this Blu-ray of the film, I believe, The Age of Gold. And the bonus film on this is Un Chien Andalou, an Andalusian dog, which is, I mean, what country is this from? France and Spain. Okay, it's a collaboration, a short film collaboration with Louis Buñuel and Salvador Dali, and it's a surrealist film. It's a film that is not really supposed to have any rules as far as I'm aware, and is meant to be more of a kind of visual experience and kind of challenging the ideas of what film is and how you're supposed to react to images on screen, things like that. So I'm intrigued to see it. I don't think it's that long, 16 minutes, made in 1929. So yeah, I'm looking forward to checking it out. Ryan Chataway mentioned this in his 24-hour movie marathon this year, and very famously, or famously to me in my own head anyway, he was talking about the film, and he was like, it's just amazing, and he's like, in fact, I'm going to show you a clip of it right now. See what I mean? And he forgot to put the clip in, so sorry Ryan, I had to throw that in there. I just thought that was just a classic moment where I was literally like, ooh, I'm looking forward to seeing this clip.
There's like really interesting scenes in this film. You know what? Let me see if I can find some clips of it. I'm gonna find some clips of it, and I'm gonna put some of it right here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, so you see what I mean?
No, I don't. Yeah, and also Ryan texted me again just now about The Phantom Carriage and said the movie was a masterpiece. So yeah, it's really cool that Ryan was on the same page with me on that. I think we both have similar taste in film, but especially when it comes to silent film. And I know that he likes this one, Un Chien Andalou. So I'm sure he'll be excited that I'm checking this film out. You know, like there's certain films I've watched over the years, like say Faust, I think, at least Woman in the Moon and Die Nibelungen, where I watched it, said to Ryan, these films are amazing, and he's gone out and watched them himself, and he now has seen them more than I have. So we have a very cool relationship in terms of our love of silent film, because we kind of push each other to watch these films. And so, you know, our love of silent cinema just grows even stronger. Now on with an Andalusian dog, Un Chien Andalou, whatever you want to call it. I'm hoping that the next 16 minutes are going to be kind to me, but I know for a fact I'm about to see a woman's eyeball get sliced open with a razor blade. So there's that. Alright, here we go. Mise en scène, Louis Buñuel. I've heard of Louis Buñuel in going through some classic movies in the book, 1,000 Movies You Must See Before You Die, I'm sure I've seen his name crop up quite a few times, including The Age of Gold, which is what the main film is on this Blu-ray. Salvador Dali, is one of those names I've heard plenty of times, but I don't really know who he is. Is he some sort of weird painter or something? I really don't know. I don't know. Right, once upon a time, there's a guy, he's sharpening up his razor blade. Oh god, he's cutting into his fingernail. Oh god, here we go. It's kicking off now. It's starting now. We're gonna. Oh. See, I'm a little bit squeamish, and I hate stuff to do with the eyes. I'm really sad. I used to touch my eye when I was a kid. I used to just like touching my eyeball. Don't know why. I was really weird. I could never do it now. Okay, he's opening the eyelid. He's got the woman there, and there's the moon, and oh, fucking hell! I'm sorry. That was filth. That was absolute filth. Oh my god. Oh, I could feel it. I'm not overreacting. I'm not overacting this. That was repulsive. He sliced into the eyeball. The contents. I sounded like Arnold then. 8 years later, just like that, you know. Fucking hell. Yeah, that gave me the creeps, man. I did not like that. Right, same woman. So it's 8 years later. Oh, her eye's fine. So I'm not even kidding. I'm not trying to make this entertaining or overdo this or anything. But my eye is like aching slightly. It's like I'm getting that kind of phantom transferal, you know. Ugh. Right, well, on we go then with the next 14 minutes of this. Right, guy's looking at his hand and there's a hole in it and there's ants crawling out of it. What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? This is ridiculous. This is the weirdest film I might have ever seen. This has been 15 of the most profound minutes of my life. The end. It was rubbish. I honestly, I they kind of lost me when they were dragging the dead horses or the dead deer through the room, and you could see like the eye socket and the blood pouring down the dripping down the horse's face. Nah, not for me. I don't know. I don't know if this is Louis Buñuel and this is the kind of stuff he makes, or if the Salvador Dali connection kind of really pushed this over the edge, or what. But for me personally, the surrealist thing, you know, presenting art in a completely out of ordinary structure, you know, look, aesthetic, you know, with paintings, I think it can work and evoke something in a film. You know, I mean, I'm just glad that it was 16 minutes long, you know. Obviously it makes no sense, and I almost wonder if Buñuel and Dali just kind of made this film for a laugh, and then the surrealist movement was born, and then they just kind of were chuckling away as everyone kind of theorized about what this means and the deeper analysis. I highly doubt that, but it makes you wonder, and it would certainly make me feel a lot better, because I certainly didn't get anything out of this film. I know that Ryan Chataway likes it. In fact, I mentioned that. So I texted him, and what did he say? Let me get it up on my phone now. He said that first surrealist film I ever owned, crazy but a must-watch. Two greats team up for one film. Sign me up. Buñuel is a genius, and so is Dali. Yeah, sign me off. I'm being serious here. I didn't really get it, and I suppose that's the point. It's supposed to challenge the traditional structure of film, the traditional, you know, idea of film, of narrative, presenting images and ideas and things like that. But I just got nothing. I mean, it made me laugh when, you know, at the beginning it was like 8 years later, and here's me in the video going, oh, but her eye is still, her eye is back, you know. Like that meant fucking anything, because then it's like at 3 AM in the morning, and then a guy's like in a room with another guy, and it's like 16 years earlier, and it's the same room, the same people, and now it's in slow motion. Like it just means nothing. It's I find it hollow, you know, and just, you know, I could make something like that, and it would mean nothing as well, and it would just be a series of images that are vaguely linked together. At one point, the male main character, he is feeling up the breasts of this woman, and he's like, oh, and he's loving it, and then like her clothes fade away, and then suddenly he's like drooling blood and stuff, and his eyes are all white, and it's just, I don't know. I wasn't really a big fan of it, you know. And it's in the book, you know, 1,000 movies you must see before you die. So I'm gonna have to do another video about it eventually. But Unshen and Delu, you know, the jury's out on that one. I think, you know, maybe I'll read into it and kind of, you know, watch it again with perhaps a better perspective on it. But I don't really see that, you know. Yeah. Alright, I really feel like I should be closing this marathon out now with the last feature film, the one I've been saving till the end for a very special reason I'm dying to see, but I'll be damned if I'm not such a completist that I have to watch one more film. I just feel like it wouldn't be complete if I didn't throw this in there and kind of round off this particular director's, you know, work as presented on this Blu-ray, Madame du Barry, Ernst Lubitsch. There is another film which I mentioned, Als ich tot war, When I Was Dead, which stars the director himself in a lead role that involves his faked suicide and infiltration of the domestic space whilst in disguise. Interesting. It's 37 minutes long, so I'm going to watch that before the final film, just so I can say that I've seen it. Just because it's presented on the Blu-ray, and, you know, it would feel weird to me to kind of, you know, in the next marathon go, hey, remember this film I watched? Well, I'm going to watch the bonus one instead. No, I'm going to just watch it now, get it out of the way. Not particularly looking forward to it. But then again, I wasn't with Madame du Barry either, so hopefully it'll be a nice surprise. And, I mean, you know, last time, Silent Movie Marathon 2, I was watching one of the silent Wizard of Oz films on the Wizard of Oz 1939 Blu-ray, and there was like 5 of them. And just because I was such a completist, I had to watch all of them. So it's kind of like that, I guess. Not as extreme, but let's check it out. Was it When I Was Dead? When I Was Dead, 1916. I think it is the earliest surviving Lubitsch film. So let's check it out and kind of bring this one home in the next couple of hours. Interesting, the film was opened with kind of a cast credits, followed by the actors kind of walking through a curtain and kind of smiling at the camera, including the director himself, Lubitsch. It's always interesting to put a face to the name when it comes to directors like this, especially back in the silent era. So I now know what he looks like, and that's interesting to introduce the cast at the beginning and have them kind of just, you know, kind of like a cast title card, I guess. You used to get it like in the 80s movies at the end of the film. It would show the face and they still do it, you know, in some films, but I've never seen that at the beginning, I don't think. So that's good. It's kind of an introductory kind of, here's the cast, or the main characters. And at the beginning it said a comedy in 3 acts, so it's a comedy film. And I quite liked some of the humour in Madame du Barry, so maybe I'll find this funny, I don't know. Will I find it funnier than Chaplin? So Lubitsch goes to this place to play a game of chess, and then it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and we cut back and he's in the same spot. His opponent still hasn't decided what to play, and then one of them says, you know, someone's apparently died playing chess. I kind of was joking earlier, but that was a funnier gag than anything in that Chaplin film, you know. It's the idea that he's like, okay, it's my move, let me just think about this, you know. Like 3 hours later, he's still chomping on his cigar, trying to plot his next move. Well, that was really good. I really enjoyed that, actually. Dare I say it more than the Chaplin film. When I Was Dead. Nice little story. I love the beginning where it sets it all up, and you have Ernst Lubitsch himself, and that's his character's name in the film, Ernst. His mother-in-law kicks him out because she doesn't like him, kind of convinces her daughter, his wife, to go along with it. She sends him a letter saying, yeah, I'm going to divorce you, because she kind of gets mad as well. And then Ernst says, right, okay, I'm going to kill myself. He sends his wife a letter saying, when you read this, I'll be gone from the living world. And so they separate and stuff, and his wife's really upset now that he's killed himself, so she didn't really want to divorce him. And again, it's a comedy. The tone is very light with this sort of stuff. One day Ernst is reading the paper and he finds that there's an advertisement to go and be like a butler servant at a house, and he's like, that's my house. So he decides to disguise himself. He gets a wig, he goes to his house, and he kind of wins over his mother-in-law, and kind of becomes kind of a big hit at the house. And he's just kind of having fun and just dicking around and stuff and just being an arse, basically. And where the film kind of fell down for me was Ernst Lubitsch's acting. I really liked him in the first kind of section, and then the middle section, he was just really just kind of goofing too much. He was mugging at the camera way too often. I liked how that was part of it, how he would kind of look at the audience and kind of, you know, wink wink, you know, hey, watch this, I'm gonna really stir things up now, haha, you know. But he would do it all the time in that middle section, and it was a bit too much and over the top. But by the time we get to the ending and the reveal of who he is and everything, I thought he was brilliant in that part of it. And the ending was really cool, but we never got to see his wife's reaction to the fact that he's still alive. But a line at the end absolutely cracked me up when his the housemaid spots him in the bed, and she freaks out because she thinks that he's been dead, and she's like, don't you know you've been dead for ages? So, some really quality gags in this film. I really enjoyed it. Nothing spectacular. I really think the second act really kind of fell down a bit when he was just being far too kind of, you know, wink wink nudge nudge to the camera, like, hey check this out, and he's like constantly like looking at the camera and stuff. Yeah, laid on way too thick, but otherwise I actually really enjoyed it. When I Was Dead, fun little comedy film, good stuff. Now on to the main event. I'm just going to go and get some stuff to eat and get ready to settle down for the final film of this marathon, and I'll tell you all about it very shortly. In fact, instantaneously for you. Alright, it's 5:15. It's time for the final film of the marathon. I've been looking forward to this for so long. It goes very much hand in hand with two films that I loved last year, Silent Movie Marathon 2, two films that I just fell in love with and became so enamored with the pairing of the actor and actress in those two films. I'm talking, of course, about Seventh Heaven and Lucky Star, both directed by Frank Borzage, American director, and both starring Charles Farrell and Janet Gaynor, who are an amazing on-screen couple, I have to say. They did many films together, but perhaps the most famous were the ones they made with Frank Borzage. Seventh Heaven from 1927, Lucky Star from 1929, and to now bridge that gap, I have the third one to watch, and it is Street Angel, starring the same two, Charles Farrell, Janet Gaynor, and directed by Frank Borzage. And what's really interesting about this is it kind of completes a trilogy of films that go towards Janet Gaynor's Oscar win. She was the first actress to ever win the Best Actress Academy Award, and she won it for Street Angel, Seventh Heaven, and Sunrise, respectively. So for these three films, all told, they were the ones that Janet Gaynor won the Best Actress Oscar award for. I don't know if that's ever happened before. Well, obviously it never happened before because it was the first Oscars. I mean, I don't know if it's ever happened since then, or if it was kind of the norm in the early days of the Oscars. It certainly doesn't happen now. I know that there has been an instance of someone being nominated twice, but for different films. So I'm not sure how that works. But anyway, Street Angel is the final piece of the puzzle to me. I even watched another film these two did together not long after last year's Silent Movie Marathon called Change of Heart, which was a good talkie, nothing special, but it was really interesting to see the two on screen together and to hear their voices. I'm a big fan of both of these actors, and I cannot wait to watch Street Angel. I'm dying to see this. I hope that I love it, but perhaps it's going to be the reverse effect. You know, The Phantom Carriage, I was really, you know, not really that hyped or amped up for, ended up knocking my socks off, and this one I'm kind of hoping maybe too much that it'll knock my socks off, so perhaps my socks will stay on today and this will kind of be a very good film, but perhaps it might disappoint me. I really hope that's not the case. But let's do it. Let's finish this whole thing off with one more movie, Street Angel. The film is ready. I'm here with my final glass of Coke. Cheers. It's been a great marathon so far. I hope it ends out strong. Fingers crossed. Here we go. So I'm about 5 minutes into the film, and there was an interesting kind of 3-minute opening scene in a street in Naples in Italy, which is where the film is set. And it's just about these two guys getting an argument over a sausage. And then, you know, we pan around the street, this amazing set, just looks phenomenal. And then there's like a woman sitting on these steps with a hood over her head, and I'm thinking, oh, this is Janet Gaynor, this is her now, this is the Street Angel. And then the camera keeps on panning, and it almost felt like it was teasing me as to her introduction in the film. And at this point, you know, she was a huge star, you know, Charles Farrell and their kind of pairings in films had become a thing, I guess. And so it almost felt like that was what it was. It almost felt like that was what it was for. You know, just to kind of tease the audience a little bit and be like, okay, we're not giving you the main characters just yet. We're going to give you the mood of the thing first and show you some of this great set that we built and get you into the feel of the location of the film. This feels very much similar to Seventh Heaven in that regard. I suppose Lucky Star too. You have these very elaborately designed sets to show the locations, but this one feels more in tune with Seventh Heaven, with the streets and the kind of grimy atmosphere of the streets and stuff. But yeah, I mean, she's on the screen now, and her story begins. Okay, I'm done, I'm finished, I'm through, I have completed Silent Movie Marathon 3. It's in the books, it has come to its natural conclusion, it ceases to exist, and now we wrap up. Street Angel, what did I think of it? 1928, directed by Frank Borzage, starring the two and only Charles Farrell and Janet Gaynor. What did I think? I loved it. Did I overhype myself? A little bit. Teeny bit maybe, for sure. I do think that the other two films that Borzage made with Farrell and Gaynor are not only better, but my favourites as well. I don't know. An argument could be made that this is maybe better than Lucky Star, but I think Seventh Heaven is the real strong one of the three. But this one was still phenomenal. I can see why Janet Gaynor won the Academy Award for Best Actress for both Sunrise, well not both, for all three, Sunrise, Seventh Heaven, and this film, Street Angel. In fact, I think this is the only film, correct me if I'm wrong, in Oscar history that won awards in 2 different years. This won awards in 1928, or no, 1929, I think. And then I've read somewhere that it won an award on one of the years, and then the next year it won something else. I'm not sure why, but it did. This actually came with a movie tone score, which is when they were kind of tinkering with using sound in the early stages of sound. After the jazz singer, you know, sound was starting to become a thing. In Sunrise, we saw a movie tone score where there was no dialogue, but certain sound effects at certain points in the film, and the film would actually come with the soundtrack on the film, you know. And this had that as well. There were scenes where both Charles Farrell and Janet Gaynor were whistling, and while it wasn't matched very well and the whistling wasn't really like perfectly in tune, there was whistling in there, and there was actually a couple of songs, and there was a moment where a street band walks by and you hear them playing, and another moment in the street where you hear the music from the band playing. And at first I thought it was what a lot of people who compose music for silent films after the fact do. They include little things like that, like in, say, Lucky Star. Lucky Star? I was thinking of these two too much. Shooting Stars, the British film that I watched a couple of days ago. There was a great amount of incorporating music in a score that was recorded, you know, like in today, like in, you know, I think it was maybe last year they did that for Shooting Stars. So it's a contemporary score that was recorded, you know, decades and decades after the film came out, and they incorporate music when there are scenes with like you know, piano and stuff like that, even down to matching the keys, things like that. And sometimes I like that, sometimes I don't. It can go overboard. We had the big discussion last year with Wings, that film, whether it was right to include sound effects in the film after the fact. You know, I don't usually like it when they try and put these sound effects in and things like that, but in this case it was actually the original movie tone score. As far as I'm aware anyway, it felt very original. Like the quality of the track wasn't perfect, so, and there's a little French disclaimer at the beginning that says something like musical accompaniment original movie tone, something like that. So yeah, this is a French Blu-ray, by the way. The other two films were released in France by, I think it's Carlotta. Yeah, so they released the three Bezzeghi, Gaynor, Farrell movies. Anyway, so Street Angel is about a girl played by Janet Gaynor who is a woman of the street. She's got an ill mother and she's trying to pay for her to get better. And she, in a desperate moment, she grabs some cash, gets caught red-handed, lives in Naples, Italy, and she is sentenced to a year in the workhouse in prison. She ends up escaping, running away, and kind of trying to make a new life for herself. And that's when she joins the circus and meets this vagabond painter played by Charles Farrell. And you know, straight off the bat, she hates him, she hates his guts, and she's really just contemptuous towards him and things like that. And he is just completely besotted with her. And I love that part of their relationship. I wish that it had been drawn out even longer, because of course we know they're going to grow to love each other. She's going to grow to love him just as much as he loves her, and there's lots of sweet moments throughout the film. And there's a great scene where he's doing a portrait and they're kind of up on this hill, and it must have been in the Hollywood Hills somewhere in California, but it looked like Italy. So there was because it was really nice, because in this film, well, in fact all three of the films that they did with Bezzeghi, Lucky Star and Seventh Heaven, very set-orientated films. You know, it feels very artificial a lot of the times, but that kind of goes with the charm of it. But in this film, there's actually a couple of scenes on location that look really good, and it just opens up the scope of the movie a little bit, and I really like that. But just the shot of him, you know, and her sitting down to be painted, and the backdrop was really, really cool. And yeah, I wish that part of their relationship had been drawn out a bit longer, but I understand why, because their relationship goes through a very interesting course that gets plotted throughout the film. And the only thing I would have liked more out of this is perhaps the ending to have not felt as rushed as it did. It worked, and I thought it was a nice ending, but I think that they could have got a little bit more mileage out of that at the end, and maybe given it a bit more depth, perhaps. You know, it was very simplistic the way that everything was resolved at the end, and I understand it, and I get the imagery and everything and how it all tied together. I thought it was a very nicely woven, thread to the end of the film. I like that, but you know, I think I wanted a little bit, another 3 or 4 minutes, I think, out of the end would have really nailed the end of this film home. The lighting is phenomenal, as I mentioned, the sets. You know, there's a great scene where Charles Farrell is looking for Janet Gaynor. I mean, their character names are Gino and Angela, but I mean, yeah, I'm always just going to think of them as, you know, Janet Gaynor and Charles Farrell, because I just love them so much. But Gino is walking through the streets of Naples looking for her, and it's a long shot, and there's people passing past the camera. He's going through all these. It just shows the scope of the set that was so huge, and really sold the whole atmosphere of everything. And it's interesting how they did that. Seventh Heaven was set in Paris, you know, and obviously, you know, they're not French, and the same with this one in Italy. Lucky Star is an American set film. So it's interesting, we get kind of different settings and different, you know, I like that. But the Italian thing kind of played into the score as well, and what they were whistling to each other. It's this very famous Italian kind of theme, I want to say. And I don't even know what it is. I couldn't even begin to tell you, but I guarantee you 8 out of 10 people would know exactly what it is, because as soon as I heard the first few notes, I was finishing it in my head. Just a tune that's whistled, and I think it's linked to Italy, it's Italian, and it's used in the score, and it kind of keeps coming back throughout the film. And I like that, you know. I mean, there'd be little bits where Janet Gaynor's kind of going like, you know, like this, kind of like almost like Mamma Mia, you know. And I thought that was a bit weird, to be honest. But they were great together, as always. Magnetic chemistry, I think. Like just the way that she looks into his eyes, and the way he looks into her. I find it very difficult to believe that these two people in real life didn't love each other, at least as, you know, platonically, because it's too convincing, the way he lovingly looks into her eyes at some points in all three films, I think. Or perhaps maybe just this one and Lucky Star, because his character's quite different in Seventh Heaven. Anyway, I'm a big fan of all three films. This one's probably my least favourite, but I still loved it. The lighting, especially towards the end, it was very moody, and I love the way it looked. Unfortunately, the transfer in this one was probably the worst of the three. Sadly, it wasn't a great transfer, but it was in high definition, you know, and it was better than DVD at least, you know. But I have to say it was pretty ropey at best for some of the scenes. And yeah, I liked the story. It was hard seeing lovely Janet Gaynor being kind of a woman of the street, a prostitute, if you will, towards the beginning. It's like, oh, not Janet Gaynor, you know, she can't be a prostitute, and that plays into the film, you know, because she gets arrested and then escapes, and so she's essentially on the run. And Gino, Charles Farrell, he doesn't know about her past, and there's this kind of like heart-wrenching moment where they're together, they've fallen in love, they're on good terms, and they've moved in together, and they're looking out of the window, and there's this woman who gets taken away by the police, and it's implied she's a prostitute, and Gino says, well, you know, people like that, you know, the prostitutes, they deserve what they get, you know. And he's like, you'd never be like that, you're so pure and all that, and you just see this look on her face. It's kind of a subtle kind of, you could see it crushed her, you know, to know that if he knew the truth about her, would he love her the way he does? And that's kind of the central theme of the film, the central story, and whether he'll find out. And yeah, so really enjoyed it. Some good emotional parts that got to me a tiny bit, you know, little bits, you know, not hugely, but you know, it had heart, it showed it. It was melodramatic as hell, as it always is, but as always, I'm always impressed by Janet Gaynor's acting. You know, just she's really good at the old just tears, eyes glistening with tears, you know, just streaming almost. Like you just really feel for her in those moments where it calls for it. And yeah, I mean, again, the ending, because I feel like it needed a bit more time and it felt a tiny bit rushed. It kind of became a bit too melodramatic, like just over the edge a little bit, because these films with these two are always quite melodramatic, but I feel like it went a bit too far. I suppose it does in the other films as well, because in the other films you have these stretches of logic towards the end. Well, not even logic, but just like, really? Would that really happen? But in this one it's more just like, you know, it just felt a bit too rushed, like I say. But, you know, I still loved it, and will totally agree that I have a bias towards enjoying the on-screen chemistry of these two actors, so that definitely helps towards it. But Frank Borzage, a great director, I need to see more of his films, and you know, while there wasn't anything quite as showy in this as there was in Seventh Heaven, like the great shot going up the 7 floors, it was just amazing. There's still some really nice little moments of direction shown, you know, the way that he just set everything up and all that kind of thing. So a great way to end the marathon. Definitely not the best way. I think if I'd ended with Phantom Carriage, it would have been like just the epic ending that I always want to have. See, I try and plan these so that I end on a really cool high note. But I think I need to just realize that that's never really going to happen unless I just let it happen kind of serendipitously, because you can't plan for these things. I certainly didn't plan for Phantom Carriage kind of sweeping me off my feet the way it did. But I did know I was going to love this, so I think it was a good thing I saved until the end, and it wasn't too much of a misfire, I don't think, because I loved it. I thought I'd love it a little bit more, but you know, you can't have everything, and I still really enjoyed it, and this is one that I will be revisiting over and over again. And that, I think, is probably where, with this silent movie marathon, that's kind of the real test of how good these films are, you know, from my perspective and in my opinion. And I have to tell you, I've loved not rating these films. I really have, because last year I was almost having a mental breakdown about, you know, is this film a 10 out of 10, you know, and if it isn't, like, it was so stupid, and it's been so freeing to not do that, you know, and to not rate any of these films in you know, without mentioning the Phantom Carriage, which I did actually say would be for me an 11 out of 10, which is the mark I give a film that is a true 10 out of 10. Because I'm very lenient with my ratings, and I give a lot of films a 10 if I've enjoyed them completely. That's pretty much my criteria for a 10 out of 10 film. If I enjoy every single thing about it, it's full marks. But an 11 out of 10 is one that I would point to and say, no, that is a masterpiece, you know. Because I give Last Action Hero a 10 out of 10, and it is not a 10 out of 10 film, but I love everything about it, so how could I not give it full marks, you know? It's that kind of mentality I have towards rating films. So to not have to do it has been really cool, and I think, yeah, the real kind of stamp of approval for me is, will I watch this silent film again? And, you know, films like Downhill, I don't know if I can ever see myself watching it again. You know, will I keep the Blu-ray? Yes, just in case, I suppose. And I like owning films from certain directors, so it's nice to have like a Hitchcock film in the collection. And maybe I will revisit it one day. Who knows? You know, there's a lot of years left in my life. Hopefully, touch wood. And so eventually I am going to run out of these silent film Blu-rays, you know, and so I'm going to have to start revisiting them at some point. Anyway, I've been holding this one up for far too long. I thought what I'd do is kind of send you off the same way I did last year by going through the films again, but giving you kind of my order, best to worst or worst to best, and kind of build up to my favourites ranked very loosely from this marathon. And also, if I forgot anything, to kind of give you some extra little tidbits if I can remember them, because there's definitely things I've forgotten to mention. So, starting at the bottom, Un Chien Andalou just didn't really impress me that much. You know, I mean, some of the bits were cool, I guess, but you know, I even spoke to Ryan and I said I didn't dig it, and he's like, I disagree, it's a masterpiece, and no, it just isn't. I get that it's supposed to be dreams, but you know, I don't know, I just wasn't a big fan of that one. Then we go to Gypsy Anne, surprisingly. I didn't think I'd be putting this that low, but you know, I appreciate it historically, but it wasn't quite you know, a great film. That's all there is to say about it. I appreciated it. I respected it for what it was, the first feature-length Norwegian film, but it's not a film I'm going to be watching again and again. And here's a tidbit that I forgot to mention. The score I really liked on this one. They did a great score. And there's a bit where, throughout the film actually, it keeps coming back as a recurring theme. They've basically, whoever did the score for this, whether it's without knowing or they're fans, a theme from the Zelda game, Ocarina of Time, Nintendo 64, 1998 classic, one of my favourite games of all time, Zelda's Lullaby, is in this, but like the last couple of notes are changed. It's like, and I can't even begin to explain it, but and I doubt there is anyone in the world who will ever watch this film and make that connection, so I don't even know why I'm even bringing it up, but I thought that was interesting. And I was like, it's Zelda's Lullaby, and then, oh, no, they've changed one note at the end there. But I guess who is ever going to know, you know? It's not a film that a lot of people are going to be watching. Next we have Downhill. Yes, I did think that this was better than Gypsy Anne, and I suppose out of the two I probably would watch this before Gypsy Anne again. Maybe in a better mood I would get more out of this Hitchcock film, so... next up we have the two Chaplin shorts, again quite low on the list, but you know, enjoyable for sure, just quite a lot of misfires on the humour for me, and I definitely am going to watch the rest of that set, and I'll maybe give you an update on what I thought in the next Silent Movie Marathon, Silent Movie Marathon 4. The John Ford film, Bucking Broadway 1917, really enjoyed it, the ending, as I mentioned. You've already heard me talk about this. I love the ending. It was such a rollicking kind of like, yes, the good guys literally ride in to save the day. Then we have Nanook of the North, just a really great documentary. I can understand why it is so hailed. Definitely have my problems with it, like I said, with the animal stuff, but it's still a fantastic and insightful film. Maybe not documentary. It is a documentary, and it does capture something that's quite special, I think. Oh, I didn't even think about this, but next up we have Madame du Barry, and also When I Was Dead. I guess I'll just put those two in the same spot. Madame du Barry, great film, really, so that's probably the biggest surprise of the whole marathon. I really enjoyed it. I didn't expect to. I was dreading this one, like I said. And When I Was Dead was a really good little comedy film that I enjoyed a fair bit. Oh, and also, yes, When I Was Dead, here's one little tidbit. In the film I watched today, the short film When I Was Dead, the intertitles reminded me of Stranger Things when it came to the text. Both the font and just the kind of damage on the print and the flickering really reminded me. I mean, take a look. If you can see the connection, tell me, because I really just thought of Stranger Things. And what a weird thing, you know, that's a film, 1916, a 100-year-old film called When I Was Dead, a comedy about a guy who pretends to kill himself and then infiltrates his own house, disguised with a wig, and the intertitles look like a show that gets made 100 years later. That's a weird one, but I definitely think there's a similarity there with the font and the text and everything. These are the things that go through my head. Next up, Turksib, or Turksib. Really enjoyed it. Great documentary, just phenomenal editing, just awesome. In fact, this is probably a better film than the next couple of films that I'm going to be showing you, but I'm going on favourites here, and this was definitely one that had some phenomenal sequences in it and is a real standout piece of film editing art, I think. Then we have Buster Keaton's Battling Butler. Loved it. didn't know what to expect because I'd seen all the films of his that were really classed as his best. You know, Sherlock Jr., Steamboat Bill Jr., The General. Our Hospitality isn't really mentioned that much or name checked, but I think that's probably his best film. But Battling Butler was one that I never really hear anyone talk about, so I was really surprised that it was as good as it was. I knew it was going to be good. It's Buster Keaton, but and him directing it as well. That's kind of the real seal of approval when you know Buster Keaton is starring on a film that he wrote and directed. That's, or you know, at least directed visually. You know it's going to be a good film, and I really like that one. Then we go to A Woman of Paris. Really enjoyed this drama. There's a lot of good things about this, and you know, Chaplin, I think, is at his best when he's working dramatically with a little bit of humour. That's what I'm going to say on that one. And then we have, I don't know whether to, yeah, I'm going to go with this. Shooting Stars, in at number 3 now. We're getting towards my top 3 of the marathon. This one was just so much fun. I loved the behind the scenes movie stuff and how it worked into the story. The music was brilliant. I loved the score. I can't wait to revisit this score. I really am considering ripping the Blu-ray and just getting the score, putting it on my phone and listening to it when I go to sleep or something, because it was just really good. Number 2, you know, is there any surprise really? We're going to put Street Angel there. You know, loved it. Such a big fan of those two, so you know, it really was one that I know I'm going to watch again and again for the rest of my life. And then number 1, of course, The Phantom Carriage, the classic, just masterpiece. And you know, I'm in two minds about this. I feel like I should have gone into the plot, but I just didn't want anyone to know where this film's going, and I hope that people check this out after hearing my gushing over it earlier. But you know, that remains to be seen. I'm going to have to review this for the Epic Film Challenge 2 anyway, so if you really want to hear me talk about the plot of this film, then just stay tuned to my channel, because at some point it'll be up there and I'll be talking about it. But yeah, I really loved this, as you already know. So yeah, that's about it really. I don't want to spoil much about this. It's just yeah, I mean, there's things I want to talk about that would spoil like big plot points. There's things I want to say that I marveled at, scenes that I thought were phenomenal. You know, actresses and actors in the film that I thought were really good in their respective parts, but I don't want to give their parts away either. You know, just suffice it to say that almost everyone who was involved in this film, from the lighting technicians to the actors and to the director himself, who stars in the film too, everyone just hit it out of the park with this one. It's a legendary film, rightfully so, and I would say it's probably in the top 5 best silent films I've seen, and probably my top 5 favourite silent films too, which is really tough considering how many of them I'm a big fan of, but I really do think it's up there in top 5 territory, if not at least top 10. There's no way it wouldn't be in the top 10 of my favourite silent films, not at all. And like I said, and I think I would hold myself to this would probably be in my top 50 like best films I've ever seen. So there we go. How many films did we even watch? Let's count them down. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 films, and I think that's 10 features. So a few shorts. There was one that I wanted to watch. It was on the Turksib Blu-ray. I think it was called Shadow Over the Valley or something. It's a Welsh farm documentary, silent, from the 30s, and it's on the Turksib Blu-ray. I kind of flicked through it. There's some nice shots of Welsh scenery. The music was awful. It sounded like a video game. And I was telling Connie, because I kind of had it on while she was watching. I was like, "This sounds like a video game, doesn't it?" And she's like, "Yeah." What was that game that you thought? She looks so.
You're talking so loud.
I got my video voice on. Do you remember we were watching that? How do I even pose this question? Do you remember when I had that silent film on that I wasn't really watching, and the music sounded like a video game, and you said it sounded like something's Quest?
King's Quest.
King's Quest, right? And I said, yes, that's exactly the kind of game. It sounds like one of those old school PC point and click adventure games. Really weird how it sounded like that. Thank you. You can put your headphones back on now. So that's just a random little, you know, hey, that's me talking about all the random little shit that no one is ever going to pick up on, or no one even cares about. So that's it. There's nothing more I can say about this. It's been a phenomenal 4 days I've really enjoyed digging through all of these films. It's been a blast. Some really good ones in there, some really enjoyable ones. Films I never thought I'd watch, like, you know, Madame du Barry. Just I picked that up and I just thought, when am I going to watch this? A film about the 1700s and the French Revolution and a sordid affair with King Louis the... Oh, fuck off. But hey, I've really enjoyed it. So it just goes to show, sometimes you should just go for it. And put the time in, and maybe you'll find something in there that surprises you, and that's definitely the case here. So, Silent Movie Marathon 3, done, like I've already said, and I definitely feel like doing constant videos, like throughout the day for 4 days straight. I get so burned out and feeling like I'm just repeating myself, so if you have got this far, I'm sorry for all the times I probably did repeat myself. I hope you enjoyed this, and Silent Movie Marathon 4. The History of Silence is coming very soon, so it feels sad to finish because this was so much shorter than the last one, but I know that I've got another stack right over there that I'm looking at of more films that I've never seen before that I'm really excited to see, and I'm just waiting for that one Blu-ray to come in next couple of weeks, and then I'll be doing this all over again. Maybe I'll do it another, like, Monday to Thursday 4-day marathon and kind of plow through everything. I like doing it kind of every single day. Last year I did, I think, 12 days, and I took the weekends off because there was just so much silent films. I had to kind of just take a break. I didn't have to do that here. I definitely am glad that now I get to just sit back and watch whatever the fuck I want. I don't have to slave myself to all these silent films and try and cram in as many as possible every day. But that's the fun of it. That's the fun of it. And I kind of feel like this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, is kind of have September be my silent movie kind of month, and pick a week out of September every year and just, you know, really, you know, kind of put myself in the zone. I really feel like I enjoy these films more when I'm marathoning them, because I get into the mindset. I get in sync with watching silent films. I can watch them year round, don't get me wrong, but watching a lot of them, you really need to be in that mindset, I think. So yeah, anyway, I've rambled enough. Thank you very much for watching. It's quite late now, it's almost 10 o'clock, so I'm going to go out for another walk before I go to bed and probably dream of silence and intertitles and moody lighting and fog and animals getting harpooned and eyeballs getting slashed. What a week it has been. Thank you for joining me for it. I hope that you've enjoyed it, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one. I'm off to take another night walk.